good idea after you've had a few? Yeah, that's this show.
Riding in my car, and I'm listening to the radio.
It's time for Dukes and Bell.
Oh, someone told me it's the Black Beverly Hills. Is that true?
Driving in Atlanta just got a whole lot more bearable.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Hi, everybody. Carl Dukes and Mike Bell. The names that mean goodness.
Say my name, you know who I am.
Carl Dukes.
I drink and I know things.
Oh, don't question my authority thing.
King Kong ain't got on me.
Sometimes you just got to call somebody, and I'm not ashamed to say it. You know,
And Mike Bell.
I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown. I amuse you.
Hope you guess my name.
Bring a pitcher of beer every 7 minutes till somebody passes out. And then bring one every 10 minutes, right?
Get ready for the best 5 hours of your life.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Don't believe me, just watch.
This is Dukes and Bell.
you know what? Why don't we start doing the stuff that other guys have done, other radio shows around the country?
No.
On Sports Radio 92.9, The Game.
Atlanta! Yeah, remember in the old days you run into somebody and they go, hey, you live in hot Atlanta?
Oh, God, did I hate that.
You know, you're like,
You look at it like stupid, all right, whatever.
that's great. No, it's
Except
just,
it is kind of hot. Ain't gonna
ATL,
lie.
the A, or we just say Atlanta. But but again, hey, how's Underground Atlanta? Is that still a thing? Oh, yeah, it's popping every night.
Yeah. Hey, head on
People
down
are-
there as soon as you get into town, okay?
People are lined up to get into Underground Atlanta and hot Atlanta. Hey, man, it is Dukes and Bell with John Fricky in today. Shorter show because we got pregame. Chris Goforth, Mike Johnson. We'll have it for you at 5:30 as we get ready for, mercifully, the final pregame. And then we almost got like 2.5 weeks before we get to real football. Start off the show. Day, by the way, doing yeoman's work. He's been doing everything today because everybody's kind of grinding out their last vacation days. We basically get it in before football starts. But Day's producing today as Chris got the day off. We start the show with the big old, hey, man,
you ready for
appreciate you.
football? You're ready for football.
Yeah, but Josh Kendall from The Athletic,
Yeah.
and that's a reputable dude and a reputable source, reporting that they will not play, the starters, Falcons won't, against the Steelers. We did speak with the beat writer from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette earlier in the week, Carl and I did, and he says you will see Kenny Pickett, and you will see George Pickens. So for Georgia fans, chance to see him, and I guess the twos will be challenged on defense for a little bit.
Well, and then the Falcons sent out a tweet, and we were talking about it, kind of in a text chain before the show a couple of hours back, and the tweet was, hey, let's finish the preseason right, and the picture on it was Desmond Ridder, and that's when we all said, hey, are they actually going to play the starters? And it turns out that they are not going to play the starters. So, look, I'm going to have full faith and credit here in what Arthur Smith wants to do in not playing the starters. I just want to make sure that I'm not sitting around here. The regular season starts 2 weeks from tonight when the Lions take on the Chiefs, and, of course, the Falcons will play in, as you said, 2.5 weeks. I don't want to come out of that Carolina game saying, boy, there was a lot of rust in that first unit.
I know that every coach out there has got his own approach to this, and we've seen Patrick Mahomes play on 2 different occasions. The big story in New York is, and it's always been it depends. I as a kid growing up, sometimes that game, maybe it meant more when I was a 10-year-old, but I mean, nowadays, as a radio guy, you realize preseason don't mean nothing, but the owners of the Jets and Giants do prefer to win that game if they can at MetLife. So Jets playing Giants and Aaron Rodgers is going to suit up. But yeah, I get it. I know, and we covered this for the last 2 weeks. I want more Ridder. I think we need to see more Ridder, but I'll take a knee to Arthur because it's his show, his shop. And Arthur Smith apparently says he's seen everything he needs to see.
Well, and again, we're not going to remember what happened in the preseason, by the end of the year. I mean, because it'll have the whole storylines and everything that takes place. I would turn your attention to what happened in the preseason last year.
Right.
Yeah, well, remember, because we sat around here before the preseason last year and said, you got to start winning preseason games. Because here's Baltimore, they're out there winning preseason games. What did they won 24 in a row before the streak was snapped?
Right.
And then, they've got this great franchise year in, year out. And, we went through the whole Coach Bro not ready for prime time on the opening kickoff and in consecutive years in those 2 awful games. So we said, hey, let's take this preseason a little bit more seriously. But again, college doesn't have preseason. High school doesn't really have preseason. So, I mean, it is what it is.
No, it's just I don't want to put an onus or impetus that, hey, we got to win this. But you don't want to have a 12-game preseason losing streak. To your point about Dan Quinn, Sergeant's slogan, because at some point you've got to get into mentally game mode. And now we won't have anything this week. We, they're off Thursday, obviously, next week, and then Labor Day, and then we finally get to, Tommy's Leather on September 11th for us.
I'll give you a little bit of it. When Bill Snyder went back to Kansas State, when he took over there, Kansas State was the worst football program in the entire country. And so they were like 1-10, 0-11 every year. And Bill Snyder walked in his second year, he wiped out, he canceled all of the contracts for non-conference, and he signed 4 total tomato cans. I mean, total tomato cans. Like FCS, like all just really bad teams. And he brought them all to Manhattan, and they won all 4 games. Now, you say, well, that doesn't – but he instilled a winning culture. They actually got to 6 wins that year. They actually made a bowl game. They didn't play very well in the bowl game, but that was the point. That was the idea was, hey, listen, if we build a winning culture and break from the losing – and with the Falcons, one of the things historically with them has been that they have been a slow-starting team.
Yeah, and I know that the year we went to the Super Bowl, we lost to the Bucks in a high-scoring game, and I know that you want to get – especially when you've got – all the things we've got on our plate, the things we've been dealing with, talking to fans, and the perception of this team. Now, well, eventually the rest of the country, I think, is going to catch on to what we're doing down here, but it only works if you win. I come to work on Monday with Carl, and that is September 11th would be the show. The game is September 10th. 18 days will go without Falcons football before finally the regular season begins. But, yeah, if we come in Monday and we lose to Bryce Young in Carolina, I mean, because, again, it just – I understand it. We covered this. If you heard the show yesterday up at Eastlake, some folks just don't want to put the I don't know, the heartbreak equity into rooting for a poor team. But I think we got a lot of Falcon fans that are really excited. Some guys are on the fence. Those blow-in guys, those guys that were 7 fans and don't root for anybody else, they'll get back on this when we start winning. But this team, I think, is poised to do some great stuff. But because of Ritter and all the things we've talked about, his lack of experience, there's folks, even in his own town, that won't believe it until they see it starting on the 10th.
And of course, you can go to the other side of the card here, which is you tried out the starters tonight for a couple of series, and, 8 plays in, one of your key guys is out for the year, and then we're sitting around tomorrow going, why did you play him? Oh, my God, you could have, so.
And the coach is the biggest idiot on the planet. So we're going to go 18 days without Falcon football, man. So that's the way it went. That's why some coaches are saying, in the case of Robert Saleh, let me see Aaron Rodgers out there, because we need to have some kind of idea of what we've got continuity-wise, the offensive line, with a maybe greater sense of urgency, because the franchise quarterback is under center.
Well, and again, this is so important for this franchise. The beginning of the year, you have 4 of your first 6 games at home. The 2 games are on the road, include a game at Detroit, and then the next week when you're in London against Jacksonville. 4 of the first 6 are at home. For a team that has not historically won at its new stadium. That's, we're talking about they want to make Mercedes-Benz a home field advantage. They've never done that. Now, Atlanta United's a different story. Atlanta United's made that a home field advantage, big one.
Right.
But the Falcons have not. It's a conference game. It's a division game. It's a rival game. It's above 500, which haven't been in 6 calendar years. For all of these reasons, this opener is so important. So as long as he says to us, and again, I'll take the man at his word, that we're good to go, then I'm fine. I don't care what happens tonight.
Hey, man, big story last night was, and we'll talk more about this throughout the show. We'll get into it in Guide Talk, but I love the Braves broadcast. And, man, when you get 4 Hall of Famers, at one point they had 5 Hall of Famers. So you had Fred McGriff and you had Greg Maddux in a little split screen doing it on Zoom last night. But the great job, hats off to Bally Sports, Braves on Bally, with the Tom Glavine, Chipper, Smoltzy, and Frenchie kind of being the moderator last night.
Could Glavine not catch a plane? Does he have not the money to get a plane ticket? Is that like too much to ask?
You mean Maddux? I don't know. I mean, Greg's doing his thing. I mean, if I'm honest, Greg, not as much of a conversationalist as the guys that were on the broadcast.
It's just like, dude, what else are you doing?
But it was so much fun last night. And the game, for a while, there was nip-tuck. The other one was 13-10 on the walk-off. Everybody was excited about who's going to get their chance to do the home run call. They were rotating each inning. But the big story for me was Charlie Morton. We've talked a lot about pitching. Did we have enough? Did we need to do more at the trade deadline? Well, I wish we could fast forward into the end of September, because Charlie Morton is like a thoroughbred. 3 unbelievable starts, 3 scoreless starts, 11 strikeouts. Look great. Here is Snicker on the Ageless Wonder.
Yeah, that's how he survived as long as he has. You know what? That's how those guys survive. They don't fold the 10 up, when it's not going their way, and they've been through it. He's been through it many, many times, and just kind of stays the course. I mean, I've said this many times. This is amazing what he's doing, and all the innings he's logged, his age, all the seasons, how the ball's still coming out of his hands so good. And, testament to a guy that's dedicated and takes care of himself and is professional about how he carries himself and his routine, his work ethic. You gotta have all that. You gotta check all those boxes if you're going to pitch as long as he has.
Yeah, man, now up to 13-10. Described him, I think, yesterday as a 500 pitcher. Now he's 13-10. And the Braves win. Phillies lose. They're 13.5 over the Phillies. More importantly, John, you and I spent time on this earlier in the week. The Braves are currently 5 games ahead of the Dodgers for the best record in the National League. Got a huge series with those guys coming up, as we mentioned, on Labor Day. Off day for the Bravos, and then a West Coast swing, and starting off with the Giants. But great vibe last night. We're going to play some of the audio from the broadcast. The video, I think most guys have seen it now. It's gone viral if you didn't watch the broadcast. But the video they had of comparing Alonso getting plunked with Smoltz getting plunked, and Smoltz looking like Corbin Burnson in one of the major league movies, like actually he got shot. And see, John, just like sports talk, that situation just got so much good-natured ball busting. It was just so much fun to watch. It's like, you almost felt like you're hanging out with those guys. The only miss was everybody slugging a brew.
People say, well, why can't they do this every night? Well, A, they're going to run out of stories, and B, you don't want to have to pay what that would.
But man, is it great. And Gretchen, the executive producer, the brains of the operation over there.
Yeah, do it a couple of times a year, pick a couple of spots here. So I want to go back to because you mentioned the pitching. I want to go back to this. So this one guy, his name is Jeff Hewitt. He comes in and he starts talking to me. He says on Twitter that, the number anybody I was talking about.
Why are you messing with some knucklehead on Twitter?
But hang on, just because I think there are more that agree with him. There are a lot of more people that are like him. I was talking about numbers, with the Braves. He says the number that could only be concerning is the pitcher's ERA going into the playoffs. It's going to be an issue. And I'm like, they're second in the National League in ERA. And I said, if we roll with these guys, we're going to be good. He said, Fried and the rest is a crapshoot. Strider's been May for 2 months. I'm like, are you watching the same thing I'm watching here? Didn't he just have like a 10 strikeout one hitter? Well, okay. I guess I don't know. I wonder sometimes, what fans see, because other people were agreeing with him, and I think that this goes back to the trade deadline and the kind of the decision that was made in the Braves front office, not being cheap, but just to kind of hold the fort here on what they had. And I got to tell you, I think with Kyle Wright potentially coming back, I think they're going to be fine, Mike.
Kyle Wright's got that big rehab start in Rome, so we'll talk a little bit more about them. But yeah, as far as if you're looking at Strider, his ERA is
by the way, that's tonight.
2.70 for Strider, and the game that was ugly was Pittsburgh. He had a one-hitter against the Giants, and he struck out 10 guys in that game, to John's point. So either 3-1 in his last 4 starts. We'll come back. We got the rest of the headlines to get into. What's happening at East Lake, where Scotty Stuff is going to earn that payday today. Also in the NFL Blitz, 3 o'clock. Ryan Clark walking it back a little bit. Said some really nasty things about Tua. We got plenty of NFL on a Falcon Friday. Dukes and Bell with Fricky on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. Yeah, man. It is Dukes and Bell, hot and steamy in the A. We're watching some of the golf live at East Lake, where Scotty Scheffler is sweating gravy. I mean, dry fit or no fit, man, you're going to be looking like Ted Stryker in Airplane.
Would you be out there playing golf today? I mean, just as a casual round.
No, two things. I love golf, but not enough to play in the rain or to play in this kind of heat.
Yeah, and to me, the rain doesn't bother me. The wind bothers me.
Yeah, no rain, no wind, no cold. You know what I mean? That's got to be again. Like it's got to be about over 60 for the top to be down.
No,
it's got to be.
Don't be a win.
Yeah,
come on, stop. We used to play in something called the Divorce Open. And the Divorce Open was every Christmas morning. And if you were playing golf on Christmas morning in Nebraska,
right,
you were probably divorced or going to get divorced, which is why we called it the Divorce Open. And there'd be years where people, it'd be snow on the ground, it'd be like 38 degrees. I mean, come on, it'd be fun. You bundle up. I mean, that's where you get your whole liquid thing from. Mikey Bell.
True.
Yeah.
No, I mean, my dad, as I've told many times, didn't play golf. And so when I was a kid, Bethpage Black, the famous course used for the U.S. Open, is about 5.5 miles from literally our front door. And it might as well, as I like to say, been Madagascar, because my dad, my father thought golf was a rich man's game, an elitist game, a snob's game. And my dad was a working class hero, cop. So he's always like, you're not playing any golf. It's a bunch of, and so that's why years ago, I moved to Atlanta. And I was at the Palm Restaurant. Willie Salucci's like, hey, let's go play Heritage tomorrow. You got some sticks, right? I go, no, man, I don't play golf. What? So Willie literally, he gave the bar to Lance to run the front desk at the maitre d' table. And then he takes me over to Edwin Watts on Piedmont and sets me up with my first set of clubs. And that was back in 2001. So I'm a late bloomer when it comes to playing some G, but I do have some rules, man. And I ain't playing when it's this hot. No way, Jose. I'll sit in the pool, watch it on TV. Hey, man, let's hit our headlines.
Strap in, youngins.
In the headlines with Dukes and Bell.
As we said, Day Day is a one-man gang today, much like Haystacks Calhoun. But unfortunately for him, the computers are acting up.
You have the most arcane references at times.
Why don't you play ball? Why don't you play ball?
I know. I have to pull them out way out of left field here.
Yeah. Well, again, it's like Dennis Miller. He made a nice career out of it.
Yes,
Headlines are brought to you by ATL Live Well. Low testosterone doesn't have to keep you down. We can help. Matter of fact, I had my shot today. Call ATL Live Well today. Don't just live well. Let's start with the Bravos, 7-0, and just as good as it can be, beating the Mets this year, just owning the Mets. 10-3 against the Metropolitans, tons and tons of home runs, including Marcell Ozuna with 4, going 8 for 11. Here's what number 4 sounded like last night.
There's a drive, way back. He did not miss this one. It's too early for a crown, but it's gone. I told you. I felt it, and you delivered. Yes. You delivered.
And for those not catching the crowd reference, Chipper worked that into his walk-off call last time these guys all got assembled. I mean, like I said, it was so good. I was rewinding at times. My wife was like, well, rewind. I knew what he said. It was just that entertaining. So great job from Chipper and the video and the chop and the ball busting. Like when Smoltz gets hit, they found some old video of him getting plunked in Colorado, and he goes down like he got shot. And it just, John, it was fun. Great TV. You can find it, I'm sure, out there. The Braves have put it up there. You got the sound. Here's what it sounded like busting Smoltz's chops, comparing his plunk to Pete Alonso's the other night from Bryce Elders.
Flashback here, John Smoltz. Oh, kidney boys. Does rain in the kidney? Does the tuna? So this is what the tuna looks like. Hey, there was no tuna. It was just around on the ground, having a hard time breathing at this point. And, look at Bubba out there, Jeff Porter. This is a little freezer.
Yeah, man, flopping like a tuna. And Brian McCann, the best part of the night was when BMAC was in there, too. So I kind of wish they had Brian McCann in there the whole night. But, again, hats off to Bally Sports South. Did a great job. Braves dominate the Mets in the rubber match, win the series 2-1. Charlie Morton strikes out 11 in the win. John, we're getting ready for the Falcons. But
okay, can I go? Wait, hang on. You're going too fast here. Because I got a couple things I want to say here about the Braves.
Okay, I just want to get the headlines out of the way. We got a couple of hours, but go right ahead.
Just one thing here about the Braves. I want to know what their record is going to be, because they're going to do this four-man booth. If they get to a point where the four-man booth thing is like unbeaten and there's a win streak going on, you know what I'm saying? It's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, I think these guys, I wish I had a booth that was going to be this much fun. And when they're busting on Smoltz with that, you're right, with that video, I'm gut-busting laughing. and it is a hilarious. I mean, this is so well done. Bally should be so proud of it. Do you think they should do it again this year or no?
I mean, probably not room to get everybody in. I mean, it was kind of fun. They did it, with the Mets, and for the obvious reasons, it was a bigger series, and obviously the history of all the guys, including Glavine. It was kind of so weird seeing Glavine wearing those Mets jerseys when Sherholtz wouldn't give him that extra year on the contract, so
Right,
it took
exactly.
more loot up in New York. But
And then they show up with all the Hall of Fame jackets and leave Frenchie kind of hanging dry.
it was fun too. Busted Frenchie's chops with the Gwinnett high school home run records
right.
and stuff. So that was just the whole broadcast, just absolutely just fantastic. Now tonight you can catch it. Wes and Arch will have the call right here on 92.9 The Game. If you want to sync up with TV, of course, do a great job shocking our friends over at Fox. But we don't get to see the starters. But here's Desmond Ritter, and this is interesting. John, listen to him talking about basically doing everything that Arthur Smith is asking of him as far as the big picture.
I felt like we were sound in there. Felt like getting in the checks that we needed to get to. Obviously, it was only one drive. Now it was a 19-play drive, so it was a lot of plays. But operationally, I thought we were good. And we, as far as when we talk about, it's not only communicating in the huddle, but, it's obviously operation as a whole as far as pre-snap and post-snap. So, there's still some things, obviously, we got to clean up.
Still some things we got to clean up. I mean, I don't know, maybe like in a real game.
No other way to wait. No other way to do it. You got to wait 18 days after tonight, and you won't see the starters.
I don't want to see in the beginning here. I'm going to give all faith and credit here. I mean, Arthur Smith has earned it. We still have the things that we have to clean up, which I believe, by the way, happens to be true. Right. And on top of that, we're talking about things cleaning up, and we're not going to. Okay, I'm just trying to follow the logic here, but again, if it all works out. I just, don't want to be sitting around here. Your first two games at home, you must win. There's no, okay, we can split with Carolina and Green Bay. You're playing Bryce Young and Jordan Love. I mean, you've got to win these two games. You've got to beat both of them. You're at home. Establish yourself before you go to Detroit. All right. That's what I'm
I mean, as I said, we're crying over spilt milk. Here it is. This is it. And if they poop the bed, then it's on Arthur Smith. He believes in these guys. We know that some teams take different approaches. Patrick Mahomes wanted contact. He gets it. You're going to see Aaron Rodgers coming up this weekend. This is the way we're doing it. Smitty sees him every day. So, again, I don't like it either, but this is because the coach apparently saw all the requisite things he needed to see, whether the workouts out of Miami and that 17-play drive, which did not culminate with a touchdown.
Yeah, and it had 5 penalties in it because we have things we've got to work out. But all right, and again, I don't know, and I don't, you would take somebody like Mike Johnson to explain this to me, or I don't know if Mike actually ever went through it. These combined practices that they have, the value in them must be pretty high because essentially, I think the way they view it is there were 4 preseason games, and the Atlanta Falcons starters played a good chunk of the first preseason game against the Miami Dolphins. Not the actual game, but in the 2 days that led up to the game.
Right. And they look good. And everybody's reporting it from Miami, including the Miami beat reporters. Guys, national media that was down there all said that we dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides. The only thing that Miami had to show for it was Tyreek Hill beating, I think it was Trey Flowers. Right. And he would beat guys, let's be honest, a lot more athletic than the 6'3", defensive back for the Falcons. But I just thought this is a conundrum that every coach is kind of dealing with. How do you figure out what you want to do with this? As a Falcon fan, it sucks. And I got to be honest with you. The business model is I know this is an old saw, so I'll make it brief. I pay for season tickets. This is garbage. You can't give these tickets away. And I apologize. I know we're on the flagship, but you cannot give these tickets away. And I was pumping it up. Remember, like last week, I was all pumped up. We're going to see Ritter.
Are you an 18?
Stars for the first half. And I get it. It was Friday night. There's more compelling high school football being played in Metro Atlanta.
Are you an 18-2 guy? There are people that are 18-2 people.
Yeah, I do that too. I'd rather see 2 preseason and 18 regular.
And here's why I think 18-2 would be a really, if the NFLPA plays it right, I would negotiate 18-2. With a second, everybody gets two bye weeks.
And expand the roster to 60. But the owners won't do that because they're too cheap.
I know.
And again, they're printing money, billions of dollars, and I get all that. But, they won't pay running backs, let alone pay anybody more than the 53-man roster. Right. But that's the way the business model is set up. Hey, one more nugget for you. Talked a lot about this yesterday. Connor Riley joined us from Dog Nation. Here's Kirby talking about Branson Robinson's season-ending patellar injury. We talked with Connor. I think it's a big deal. He says, it kind of is. You said not so much. Here's Kirby on it.
Branson had a significant injury. He had a non-contact ruptured patella tendon. He actually was not even in a contact drill. So unfortunately, he'll get a full recovery, but he'll be out for the season.
Number 1 running back in the 22 class.
And number 3 in the depth chart. Look, it's not that it's insignificant. And the reason it's not insignificant is because the depth of that particular position takes a big hit. And I understand that. And yes, I know a lot of people say, well, Kendall Milton does to be. Okay, I understand that too. But, if you're Georgia, you should be able to absorb anything. You are the deepest roster, the best roster in the country. You got a better team through and through, first, second, third, fourth string than anybody else in the country. And if you get absorbed, losing a guy that's not really even a starter at the moment, not that he wouldn't be for the season, then you got a problem. I mean, so I don't think again, this is not a. Oh my God! I mean, it's not like it's not like the Chiefs losing Pat Mahomes.
You got Kendall Milton has not stayed healthy his entire dog career. Dejon Edwards is in a brace. Andrew Paul is a red shirt. Roderick Robinson, the big fella, and maybe he'll have a chance to bash through some holes. But I mean, when you've got a young quarterback now, again, not young anymore, but a guy in his first full season as a starter, I'd like to have a little more confidence in the run game. If you feel that defenses can say, hey, we're going to pin our ears back and we'll just say we're going after our quarterback. And when you've got 3 all-SEC and then you got 1 second team, that these guys are going to be able to protect Carson Beck, so the running back. I just don't think a Georgia team feels good about losing a number 1 running back who was good. Because it wasn't going to be the Kendall Milton show, John. They always do it by committee, but there's guys like Chubb and Stoney. They both contributed. And this year, I think most dog fans, I think the Dogs coaching staff was expecting Branson Robinson to be a big contributor.
I'm sure they were. I mean, but again, if you can't absorb that, you got a problem.
Well, it's going to be one of those little wrinkles. We'll see where the Dogs adapt and adjust. We'll come back. John's got some strong opinions because the ACC apparently says, let's talk about that expansion thing one more time. Problem is, none of it makes any sense and doesn't have any value. We'll discuss it next.
contested for the touchdown.
It's a Falcons game day, and we're here to get you ready.
Today, it's Falcons Steelers.
Our Falcons play here. Sports Radio 92.9 The Game.
Hey, man, Dukes and Bell, guys, and this hour of the program is brought to you by the Man Cave Store. Up your Man Cave game this football season with a new custom pool table, theater seats, or even a shuffleboard table. For family, friends, and fun, visit mancavestore.com. Don't forget you can watch us. Fricky's in for Carl. He's got the day off today. You can catch us on YouTube and Twitch. Just type in Dukes and Bell 929, and whoosh, you'll see us. We got our man Whispers doing a great job. Anytime we have Falcons, man, we kill the TV numbers. So it's a Falcon Friday, getting ready for pregame. By the way, the guys are going to be at Molly B's, Mike Johnson, and our man Chris Goforth. They'll be set up there as soon as you come into what the area they call Times Square from the main entrance behind the big Falcon. Just head over to Molly B's and see the guys doing the pregame. John, the ACC apparently kicking the tires again on an ACC expansion, but there's nobody I'd want to see them expand to. What do you think?
It's nothing I want to see either. I mean, we're less than 48 hours from the kickoff of the college football season here, and as we go into it here, this talk of expanding the ACC with Cal and Stanford from the remnants of the Pac-12, like a hurricane that's got remnants in it, and SMU is all about television money because it's the San Francisco Bay Area television market, which is the top 5 market, and Dallas, which is the 4th biggest market in the country. Dallas-Fort Worth, fourth biggest city in the country now, behind New York, Chicago, and L.A., and of course they want to get TV money, and that's why you'd want SMU, and that's why you would want Cal and Stanford. I understand it from a television standpoint, but it doesn't make any logical sense to me to have this expansion here unless you're really concerned that you are going to lose Florida State and Clemson, which I think they are still concerned that they might lose Florida State and Clemson, Mike.
Well, they got it for, what, 2 more years, right? The dateline came and went for them to pull it. Like Florida State made a lot of noise, and I think their intention was to try to, maybe spook the ACC into coming up with a more prorated system where the guys who generate the most TV dollars get more coin. ACC wasn't going to do that because you marginalize the bottom feeders of the ACC who are struggling as it is. So full of sound and fury, literally, John, signifying nothing because, other than going to – and the idea of going to, like, JP Morgan Chase and, taking out a loan for the program to buy them out, it just sounds preposterous.
Yeah, it's so – what does this become? Theater of the absurd. I mean, it's totally absurd, right? Today, we have an ACC showdown. The Cal Golden Bears at Miami against the Hurricanes. What? Big conference game here.
Yeah,
Right,
or Wake Forest. I know Wake at least shows up and Wake puts teams in bowl games and puts guys in the NFL. But yeah, I mean Boston College taking on Cal. Oh, I know. You know what? I can hear this. Hey, everybody! Beth Mullins here as Boston College takes on Cal. It's going to be a Donnybrook. Literally 12 people here in Berkeley. Yeah. I mean that's exactly what it's made for, man.
Yeah, right. Oregon and Rutgers in a Big Ten shootout today. I mean, it's getting to be just. It's like, oh, how ridiculous does this need to get before I guess we all say stop? And I guess there just is none. And to this point here, I'm sort of kind of interested that the SEC, I think, is going to have to still make another move. They're going to have to, but I'm kind of going, well, where are they going to go? Because when the ACC started talking about expansion, I thought, well, are you going to go and do what the Big 12 did? Or are you going to go after like Memphis and Tulane, which wouldn't have been a bad thing? But Cal and Stanford.
Well, the interesting aspect of this would be, when does Disney, the parent company of ESPN, ABC, when do they dump ESPN? When does Disney get out of the sports business, which they're hemorrhaging money in? Right. And, everyone knows about, all the cuts that have gone down from the worker bees to maybe one of your favorite personalities on ESPN. So, they've spent a ton of money on broadcast rights fees. They have the stuff you watch, NBA, college football, et cetera. So when does, Disney sell? And then there was a story, I guess, was it you and I were off, you were working with me, Carl, and I talked about it briefly last week about Apple. And Apple having some interest in perhaps purchasing ESPN, further advancing the streaming platform, which anyone under the age of 50 doesn't have a problem with, but those like me do. But the idea that they'd have some coin, and maybe that makes some sense. Either way, ESPN's got a contract. It begins next year. And I don't think ESPN's got the financial wherewithal to tear up that contract, and unless you could, John, conceivably bring a Florida State and Clemson in from a prestige standpoint. I know you referred to the TV markets. Those are the teams that people want to see. With all due respect to Virginia, North Carolina, people want to see Clemson and FSU.
Right, of course, and that's why the Big Ten remains interested in them. Right. Plus, it gets them into Florida, and then that's the Big Ten network. So I look at it this way, too. I can't wait for the kickoff of the Navy-Notre Dame game. All right, then now, do I really care about the game? Not that much. I'll watch a little bit, Sam Hartman making his debut, and Notre Dame, which has a really tough schedule this year. I mean, really, they got to play USC, they got to play Ohio State, they got to play Clemson. That Notre Dame schedule is not going to be easy for Marcus Freeman. But if they go 11-1, okay, maybe they can, make a case for a playoff. Point is, I want the game to kick off in 47 hours and 43 minutes because I want to stop talking about this, Mike. I want to talk about football.
Well, you're going to get it. Week 0, you get to see USC. You get to see some Heisman candidates in action, although obviously not against top flight competition. And yeah, the ACC, I get it. SMU, they're coming around. Obviously, they got the death penalty, and now it's it's 4 decades later. They're finally, I don't know. I mean, I guess it also helps the footprint of recruiting for the ACC, certainly in the state of Texas, but. The Cal thing, that's the thing. It's almost like the old days at Rooms to Go. It's, I love the couch. I love the coffee table. Why do I have to take those lamps? Can I just have the 2 things here? And their lamps have gotten better, by the way. But I just felt Cal is the booby prize. They're in it's a financial disaster because of the state of California is bankrupt. Then you've got Stanford, which is arguably the worst team in the conference football-wise this year as well. They win the Sears Trophy. Everything else they're competitive in. But then you also throw the costs in. The ACC's got one of the worst TV contracts. Now you're going to be sending your women's softball team cross country,
your golf team, your tennis team, your water polo team. Do they even play water polo in the ACC? If they do, pardon me,
I'll have to look it up.
I don't know how this all kind of works here, unless you're going to break it out eventually and say, okay, you're just a member for football, sort of like Notre Dame, is just a member for everything but football. And you're going to play all the other sports in another conference that's way out there, and your golf team is not going to travel to face Boston College or Syracuse or something. I mean, because you don't want them going cross country. So when we get back to the games here, this is why I want the season to begin. I want to start talking about this. At some point, you're going to reach critical mass, and you're going to say, all right, enough of this ridiculous nature stuff. What we're waiting for is this. So everybody's clear. Here's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for the Big Ten and the SEC to have a conclave in Nashville or Indianapolis where the 2 leagues decide, because they are the big guns. Sorry, ACC. Sorry, Big 12. They're the big guns where they say, okay, we are going to break away from the NCAA for football. All right, we're going to make our own rules, and then we're going to invite who we want to invite to join us, and then we're going to reset everything and then do a huge television contract. All right, so that's kind of what we're waiting for. But that's not going to happen this year. Maybe not going to happen next year, maybe not the year after. But soon I would think that that's going to happen. And when it does, maybe all of this will start to make a little sense.
It's one of those things I've been talking about for years on this show, that eventually we will get to a top 50, quantify it, 75, 65, 50. Yeah. All you need is 50. I mean, maybe Nebraska gets it together. Eventually Miami will perhaps figure it out. But you've got your top 30 to 40 schools that are relevant, that drift in and drift out. But there's a core 25, the ones. And those guys never change. And they don't change with early. Remember the hoopla? Oh, my God, early signing day, the world's going to spin off its axis. NIL. Oh, transfer portal. The same teams play in the playoffs. The same teams are in the top 25. So to me, it's a bunch of nothing. But getting to your point, I'm with you. That's why I love what Chip Kelly was saying from UCLA. You can have all your conference alignments and your regional stuff for all your other sports, but for the big moneymaker football, that's where everyone's an independent. Do your own schedule, and then you can have 2 separate championships, one for the smaller conferences, the smaller, not the Power 5.
The group of 5, yeah.
Right, it's easy. Yeah. Not that, but again, John's right. It's going to take, although the way the college landscape has changed so amazingly quickly in the last decade, I don't rule it out for happening in the next 5 to 10 years.
Oh, I think it'd happen faster than that.
Yeah,
because they've said they want to.
Right.
I mean, because the NCAA, I'm going to show you how stupid and ridiculous the NCAA is. Did you know this? There's a little story that's out there today, okay? It's about an LSU star. He is a star defensive tackle, and he is not going to play in the game against Florida State. Matter of fact, he is a preseason All-American, and he's not going to play in the game against Florida State. Why? Mason Smith is being suspended from the key game. Now, this is a preseason first-team All-American defensive tackle against Florida State. He's not going to be allowed to play because before the NIL, he accepted some benefit money for an autograph signing. Oh, no!
Yeah.
Dude took $500 or so for an autograph. Oh, my God. Shoot me now. Shoot me now.
But this is why. This is the stuff.
Stop it.
The NCAA, I mean, this is the stuff they shouldn't be pulling now because in the minds of most fans listening right now, in the minds of athletic directors and presidents, this is why we hate your guts. You know, you're handing out speeding tickets at the Indy 500. The horse is out of the barn.
Right.
NIL is real now. And I know, but 6 months prior it wasn't. It's
So
the same crap that Todd Gurley got. It sounds petty. It sounds ridiculous. And it's further reasoning, further examples of why the NCAA needs to go away when it comes to football.
Right. Blanket immunity. Okay, blanket immunity for any money that you may have earned on the side, or you got some kind of a deal going here, pre-NIL blanket immunity. But no, not the NCAA. The NCAA says that a key player for LSU. Now, LSU loses this game to Florida State. Are you going to be sitting around if you're, Brian Kelly saying, hey, if we had look, they ran for 264 yards. If we have Mason Smith, maybe we win the game. And so, how does that affect, again, the national title? I mean, all this stuff.
But that's
silly.
That's the stuff that I've talked about. I mean, it's the secondary violations. Look, even the stuff that Harbaugh compounded the situation by lying about it. And I'll rarely, if ever, go to bat for Jim Harbaugh. But even that's ticky-tack nonsense.
Yes, it is.
There was a player, I forget who it was, that David Pollack, he flew down there because the kid, he was an ordained minister. He was in South Georgia. And when he got signed, David flew down at his own expense to South Georgia to be there for his signing day. Mm-hmm. And having an established Georgia player in NFL, whatever it was some kind of violation of a secondary violation.
It's unbelievable. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's the stuff. NCAA runs that up now. I mean, Mark Emmert, the biggest tool gas bag, who could have, again, you wouldn't have NIL. You could have, all you had to do was, let's come up with a formula. A percentage of TV money goes to the student athletes, and we wouldn't have this ridiculous scenario we're in now. But the NCAA, again, it's a rudderless ship. Okay, we'll come back. We got some NFL to talk about, injuries, where some running backs going. Apparently, there's a bit, I'm called a bidding war, but a bunch of dudes are interested in Jonathan Taylor. We'll get into all that. This hour brought to you again by the Man Cave store, guys. Up your Man Cave game this football season with a new custom pool table, theater seats, or even a shuffleboard table for the family, friends, and fun. Visit mancavestore.com. Fricky's in for Carl right here. Falcons pregame at 5:30.
interesting.
Thanks for making us your sports station.
Sports Radio 92.9 The Game.
It is Dukes and Bell, man. Our buddy John Fricke is filling in for Carl. Tomorrow, by the way, it's a media day at Atlanta United. Now, what does that mean to you? That means that Rob Tribble will be in for Carl, and you may or may not hear one of the members of Atlanta Media die from heat stroke because they're going to be playing in a soccer match in 100-degree heat on the practice facility.
Abe is playing in it,
Abe
right?
is in it. Abe is apparently...
is Andy playing in it?
Andy's going to be at Eastleg, and Andy's too smart to be playing it in the 100-degree weather conditions.
Joe Patrick. Joe Patrick?
Yeah, Joe Patrick's going to be in the net. Gave up 13 goals in the second half last year.
Okay.
No, I mean, I'm excited to be up there, and we always have a good time talking to the players. Looking forward to talking to some of the new dudes. I can use that French that I learned in 9th grade on some of the new players. Bonjour, comment ça va? Bienvenue à Atlanta. Anyway, so we'll be talking to those dudes and give you some play-by-play. Hopefully, everyone will stay healthy, and they'll have defibrillators and ambulances standing by because that's just crazy talk. Hey, I was just, not if I'm distracted, I was just talking to my buddy T-Bob Hebert, a former center for LSU, does radio in Baton Rouge, and we were just talking. I'm trying to get the number, how much exactly Mason Smith, as John referred to, the All-American defensive lineman.
Yeah, by the way, I just made up $500, so it did. I don't care if you made $500, $5,000. It's irrelevant to me how much money you made.
Yeah, if you're just getting in the car, we talked about it last segment. The NCAA trying desperately to remain relevant, and I think all this does is hurt the NCAA. NIL went into effect obviously last year, but this was predating that, and a dude made some money signing some autographs, very similar to the Todd Gurley scenario, which seems so petty.
Yep.
And especially now when you look at it to say, like, we're talking a number of just a few months difference from when something was legal to illegal. And I know all the law and order goes, well, it was illegal, it's illegal. Well, how about some common sense? Okay. Now, I know that a lot of this nonsense about $3 million and $1 million deals, that's a bunch of nonsense. No one's making that kind of coin. But guys are making a fair wage because they generate billions of dollars for their universities. And so does he. And when the LSU plays Florida State in Orlando, I'm down there. Those tickets ain't cheap. Television revenue, the advertising, John, numbers will be huge. It's the biggest game of the weekend. He doesn't, by 2021 standards, he wouldn't see a penny of that. But to me, it's such not the NCAA that it just drives me crazy. I got three things that drive me crazy: preseason football, Roger Goodell, and the NCAA. Those are my three number one mean-ons when it comes to talk radio.
And certainly the NCAA has got to go. I mean, when it comes to football, if they want to run, you want to run, basketball, you want to run baseball, I guess that's fine. I mean. Because here's a factoid you can kind of throw at your buddies here. Do you know how many NCAA football titles Alabama's won? Do you know out there? I'm not asking you, Mike. I'm just asking the audience. Think in your how many? You want to know what? Zero. They've never won one. Why? Because there's never been an NCAA Power 5 Division I football champion ever. They've been voted on by the AP. Right. They've been voted on by the UPI. They've been named BCS champions. They've been named college football playoff champions. There's never been now Division I AA, 2, 3, 4. They have NCAA run, and they win NCAA titles. But the big schools, the answer is zero.
I've said that to listeners. I always get a kick when I tell guys in the old days, the crystal football doesn't say NCAA. To John's point, doesn't say NCAA anywhere.
Serious
college football playoff, it doesn't say NCAA anywhere on it. It's a marketing, the College Football Playoff Committee is a marketing company that set up the deals to dole out the TV contracts for broadcasting.
Correct.
And that's it. NCAA has nothing to do with it. That's why the next logical step is to have the Super 50 and let the NCAA nerds run softball, lacrosse, and, of course, March Madness, which is their big moneymaker. And let the guys get on with business now that it is semi-pro college sports. Hey, man, now that we got that out of the way, let's hit an NFL Blitz.
Welcome to the NFL. With news and notes from around the league, this is NFL Blitz on Dukes and Bell.
Hey, Johnny. The NFL Blitz is brought to you by Priority Men's Medical Center. Check them out at PriorityMen'sMedical.com. You been watching Hard Knocks?
No, I haven't. I'm not into it. I got away from it a few years ago, especially after the Falcons won, and I just haven't gotten back into it. But I understand that this is why the reality. You got to go a long way to get me to watch these reality shows. I did watch the Michael Jordan one. Obviously, was great. But some of the rest from like the Swamp Kings thing is a disaster, from what I understand. So, no, I haven't been watching Hard Knocks.
Yeah,
so
I love it. Well, I love it, and I dig it, and can't get enough of it. And Aaron Rodgers, as I said, I mean, have we all got it wrong, or is this just simply a way of him to get back at the Packers? Was he the same player up in Green Bay up until recently, or has he always been this dude, and the Packers really did host him? I don't know, but it's been some good TV. The relationship with Zach Wilson, I mean, as a mentor, he really is putting the work in with the kid. And if Aaron Rodgers lasts a year there or two, and eventually Zach Wilson, whether it's with the Jets or somebody else, does get going, I think he'll look back and say the Aaron Rodgers helped. At the time, there certainly helped him out. But if you didn't see it, there was some interesting stuff, John, you and I talked about. We were up at East Lake. Ryan Clark goes off on was it a podcast or was it a broadcast? He goes off on Tua, talking about his relationship with the team, his work ethic. Take a listen to some of the things former Steeler Ryan Clark had to say.
I bet you that. Come on, he wasn't with me. He might have spent a lot of time at the tattoo parlor. He was not at the dinner table eating what the nutritionist had advised. He looked happy.
Okay, here's more from Ryan Clark.
He's built like a girl work at Onyx in Atlanta right now on the bottom.
Come on now.
Well, I thought that they banned the Queen song "Fat Bottom Girls." I thought that was out. I thought that was like canceled. All right. Anyway,
they're making this guy. They're making Tua sound like Jared Lorenzen. Remember the Pillsbury Throw
yeah, sure.
Boy?
Yeah, I mean
they're making Tua, I should say, sound like that. So Ryan Clark goes off basically, if you couldn't follow, basically saying that Tua's not putting the offseason conditioning in. He's out of shape. Well, Tua responded. Here's what he had to say when he was asked about it at Dolphins camp.
He probably knows more about me than I know about myself. I don't know. Well, Ryan's been out the league for some time, so I don't know. It's a little weird when other people are talking about other people when they're not that person. So.
Yeah, but isn't that what it's what we're paid to do there, Tua? Talk about other people. I mean,
right.
Ryan's paid to do that. Just saying.
Well, here's one more from Tua talking about the fact that maybe he put on some size to help absorb some of the hits. I don't know. Take a listen.
I mean, I think we all worked hard throughout the offseason. And I'm not someone to talk about myself the entire time, but it takes a lot. You think I wanted to build all this muscle? Like, to some extent, like I wanted to be a little lighter. There's a mixture of things that people don't understand, that people don't know about, that are talked about, that go behind the scenes. So, I'd appreciate if you kept my name out your mouth. That's what I'd say.
Yeah. There's a Will Smith moment ready to happen.
Well, again, I think Tua's got a right to say this. I like Ryan Clark. He's very entertaining, but I think he just took it one bridge too far. So we walked it back. Today he goes on social media. When I decided to do TV, I had two main priorities. Ryan wrote in the tweet, I respect all NFL players, coaches, executive staff members. 2, earn and keep the respect of those very same people. I do my best to be honest when executing my jobs, as well as being honest when I fall short. I fell short on Monday, and for that, I genuinely apologize. So, Tua, a lot of folks in the Dolphins camp thought it was way out of line. I mean, yeah, it's fun to make fat jokes about a dude. I wouldn't think Tua would be a dude that would fit that description because, as we know, he's one hit away from never playing in the NFL again. That's not hype. That's reality. So, obviously, he takes all these assaults, slings, and arrows pretty personally, as well he should.
Yeah, he should. And you know what? You say you respect. I got to respect all coaches. I don't know about that. I mean, your job is not to do that. I mean, your job is to call it like you see it. I mean, and sometimes that means you disrespect people who have earned that disrespect. And that is the problem here is that Tua didn't necessarily earn that disrespect. So, I mean, maybe you cross the line then. Yeah, I mean, but look, somebody does something wrong, you got to call them out. I mean, That's 100% true.
Hey, we're just talking about starting players. We're not going to see the Falcons start. This is reported earlier today by The Athletic and Josh Kendall. We are going to see around the league. Justin Fields is going to play for the Bears on Saturday. We talked about Aaron Rodgers with the Jets. Jerry Jeudy gets banged up at Broncos camp getting an MRI. That's one of those weapons, certainly, that I think Sean Payton would like Patrick Mahomes to have in the arsenal. Also, Cooper Kupp says he's on track to play in the season opener for the Rams.
Yeah, that's going to be the most interesting team, I think, in a lot of ways to watch this year because, what's going to happen with the Rams? If they come out of the gate slow, are they going to start talking about, do we ship Stafford off? Do we ship Donald off? Do we ship Cooper Kupp off? Do we do a hard reset with Stetson Bennett at quarterback? Because at this point, I think Sean McVay, whatever he had going out there, certainly has slowed. I can't know what's going to happen. They seem to be closer to Arizona than they are, in any respects to the other teams in their division. So, because the Rams have had a phenomenal run. Maybe that window just closed on them a little bit. I think Tampa's going to rue the fact that they did not do a hard reset. And I think if you're the LA Rams, if I own the team, at some point everybody's got to do the hard reset, Mike. And this might be an opportunity for the Rams to do that.
The other story today, we just spent a lot of time on it. We spent all week on it. Falcon fans are still talking about it on our text line, brought to you by Solomon Brothers. Everybody wants to see more of Ritter. You're not going to get it, but you are going to see more of Jordan Love. And Jordan Love is a dude that had just, one start under his belt, and he's going to get another chance to tune up. Matt LaFleur said today at his press conference in Green Bay, everybody will play. As far as how many snaps, case by case. So if they have a long series, perhaps only one series, but a guy who's very similar but different because he's been sticking around the Packers for a few more years, but he's going to get to play this week.
You know what was interesting was, the Packers really wanted to move on from Brett Favre, and he kept retiring and then unretiring and retiring and unretiring, and then Ted Thompson and those guys just got tired of it, and they literally shoved Favre out the door because Aaron Rodgers had been sitting there for 3 years, and they said to the Packers fans, look, this guy we have, this Aaron Rodgers guy, is better than Brett Favre, and as it turns out they were right. But in the case of Jordan Love, they didn't want Aaron Rodgers to go because, you know what? Jury's out on Jordan Love. So we'll see him in game 2. And, all right, Mike, it'll be kind of interesting because, again, 2 games you got to win if you're going to make the playoffs, those first 2 games against Bryce Young and Jordan Love.
Yeah, and this is one we'll be debating. Look, said it earlier for guys who missed the top of the show. If we screw up in week 1, if we go 2-4 or 2-2 in the first 4 games, a lot of folks are going to look back to how this preseason was handled. But we're not there yet, and we're not even to this game. We're not going to see the starters. So it's what Arthur's seen enough. His sample size apparently is enough. The dude, I will say this: the ball was coming out Friday from Ritter. He was decisive. There's only one poor throw, and that was the one that I thought Kyle Pitts made a nice catch on. The receiver gets mugged, no call on the pass interference after the ridiculous call on Lindstrom. Circumstances involving the pick. I know that still a pick is a pick, John, but anybody who's in the stadium watching that game, they were going in for a score. It was 1st and goal.
And there was a holding call against Lindstrom that was just pathetic, too. I mean, so, that's good. I mean, all this is good. And again, I think we're just letting everybody know that, because we are the big flagship and we're the big talker here, that we're good with everything that is being said by the Atlanta Falcons, so long as we don't get and I know that Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot are their own group, but we are a little bit, those of us have been around a while, since, in my case, 1975 and watching the Falcons, especially with Coach Bro, as it went down the rabbit hole there at the end after the game against Philadelphia, the starts to the season for this team, just once I'd like to see him come out of the game. Interestingly enough, it was Coach Bro's first year. What were they, 5-0 to start the season, I think? I think they were like 5, maybe 6. They were 5, and they ended up 8-8. And
then 5-0.
Right, 5-0, right. And they went to the Super Bowl, of course, the next year.
Hey, man, there is your NFL Blitz. Real quick, by the way, if you're heading downtown, I'm not sure just what exactly the traffic is going to be like with the president. Always a special time in a president's life when he gets arraigned or gets charged. Never mind. I'm not going down this road. Stay in our lane, but if you're in traffic, just be aware. When I was driving up here to Midtown today to the offices, there were tons of state police and obviously some rolling roadblocks. So just wait for Will Gary. He'll get the traffic update to you a bit. It could be some funky stuff going on.
Great. Especially if we go down to the same, you might want to leave a little. I think generally traffic today was pretty heavy around town. You might want to leave a little early if you're going to the game.
Hey, man, we'll come back. We'll talk about who's going to make the cut. The good news is when you added people and you've had money to spend and you drafted well, you actually have to cut some good players for the first time in about 5 seasons. We'll discuss that next with Fricky in for Carl. It is Dukes and Bell.
Another Falcons game day, and we'll get you ready with a complete breakdown of today's game.
Today, it's Falcons Steelers.
Our Falcons play here. Sports Radio 92.9 The Game.
Hey, man. It's Dukes and Bell with John Fricky. Just telling Fricky during the break, I just want to get home. We're off at 5:30 tonight, pregame. Molly B's inside Mercedes-Benz. Mike Johnson, Chris Goforth will have the pregame. The word is former President Trump, and you still refer to the president as president, whether he's in office or not, just like when you talk to Andrew Young, you say Ambassador Young. But the former president announcing he's going to surrender at 7:30 today.
That's kickoff time.
Yeah, that's right around the time a lot of folks are going to be in the same. The good news is there's only going to be about 17 to 25,000 people in Mercedes-Benz.
It'd be a thing if it were 75,000 going, right?
Right.
But so it won't be that big a deal in terms of that. As we get ready for the Falcons, and I'm kind of curious, Mike, as you look at the Falcons right now, do you think that given we talk about the depth of the team, and they're going to decide tonight on a number of positions, that they're going to have, for the first time in a long time, some seriously coin flip decisions at certain positions about who's going to make the roster and who isn't?
Well, some of the big battles, the good news is we've got so many guys that have balled out, and we've obviously, finally had money to spend. That's it. I mean, when you have salary cap hell, you look back at some of the guys. If somebody went down last year on defensive line, the guy plugged in's football card would have 3 teams in one calendar year. Mm-hmm. Practice squad guy.
Sure, of course.
So now we've got guys that are actually, experienced or young guys on the rise. We've got a combination of both on this team. The second-round players from like last year, like Ebba Katie, Richie Grant, previous draft, get a chance to shine. I'm excited. But, I mean, for me, right off the top of my head, I would say, what's the safety battle going to be? Because
DeMarco Helms certainly put his name into that.
Yeah, and the knock on him was they said he was a little stiff in coverage coming out of Bama, and all he's done has been a ball hawk in his preseason, right?
Right.
Then you get into some of the other positions, offensive line. I do think, John, we're going to probably move away, and it's time. It is what it is from Jalen Mayfield, and we'll probably look at other teams that are moving on from offensive linemen, maybe because they've had too much quality there. Hopefully we can find a diamond in the rough and plug in better reserves for the offensive line. That would be my concern, especially since we lost Matt Hennessy for the season.
Yeah, depth on the offensive line is a bit of a concern. One of the things that's true about that 2016 Super Bowl team, you may or may not know this, is that offensive line, that Schrader team, the team that had Alex Mack, that offensive line, Chris Chester, they played every snap all season, okay? No injuries. Right? I'm just saying.
The only injury, ironically, happened in the NFC Championship game win over the Packers when Alex Mack broke his leg.
Right, exactly.
Right, a hairline. Nobody knew about it. I mean, they kind of slow-rolled it. And then Alex Mack was able to get through the first half, and then unfortunately the second half he started to struggle.
Right.
And that's when, as you saw, the Patriots dialed up the heat. One Devontae Freeman missed blitz. We're not reliving that. But yeah, that year, though, it was Chris, who was it? I got to look at the roster now. But we picked up Andy Levitre,
right,
the year before,
right,
and that was
Chris Chester.
Chris Chester. That was the one I couldn't think of for the Washington. It was at first, I got to be honest, Carl and I saw, wow, it's another, at the time you could say it was Redskins cast-off that had an affiliation with Shanahan, but that guy was money. He was rock solid at the right guard and left guard.
So, and it's been a joke of a position ever since.
Exactly right. This team had some dudes that just played as a unit cohesively from right to left. Ryan Schrader, you mentioned Chester, Alex Mack, Levitre at left guard, and of course Jake. So this year, I think with the emergence of Matthew Bergeron, you've got some solid pieces. I think Ryan Nuzeel has shown himself to be a good, perhaps, swing man. If anything happens to Dahlman, you got a guy at center who can plug in right now.
Right, and of course your right side of the line has turned out to be pretty good. The 2 number 1 picks, you got 3 number 1 picks on that line, and both your tackles, and of course maybe the best guard in the NFL, and Chris Lindstrom.
Wide receiver wise, and some guys around the national media who don't know what we're about because we have running backs who catch the ball, tight ends who play like wide receivers, but Josh Ali, Kaderil Hodge, there's a couple of. I love Penny Hart in practice. Obviously, Scotty Miller is the slot guy, and
Scotty Miller's going to make the team.
But yeah, I'm curious to see where they go with that. But and then at tight ends, I heard Smoking Joe Patrick talking earlier with Andy Randy about this. We've got a bunch of tight ends, and I hate to lose the other guys. McCole Pruitt's really good. I know that we've joked around at the tight end position about, we got like 17 guys. The last time we had these many tight ends, it was Dan Reeves was coach. Remember? Right. He used to draft them all the time and bring them in. But we've got some dudes.
Because generally I think you have a situation with the wide receiver core that I tend to broaden out and say it's not really a wide receiver. Oh, well, their situation at wide receiver. First off, I don't think their situation at wide receiver is bad by any means. I think they have a burgeoning star in Drake London. I think they have a very durable and potentially very dynamic guy in Mac Hollins. But it's the passing game. Okay, you got to take it as you view it as a passing game because that's where you put Jonnu Smith and Kyle Pitts and CP84 and even Bijan Robinson. They're all part of the passing game, okay? Right. It's not a wide receiver core. This is not a vertical passing team, okay? I mean, I hope they can be vertical at times this year, right. But it's not a team that is destined and by design it's not Matt Ryan. It's not Julio Jones. It's not that kind of team.
But if you go back to the Tennessee Titans when they had A.J. Brown and you had Derrick Henry, the play action could set up the vertical passing game.
No. I want them to do vertical again, but that is not their bread and butter.
Right. I mean, we didn't see any of it in the preseason, for the most part. Intermediate. I mean, but then again, you got to also remember, guys, and this is hard for fans to get their head around, you didn't see the whole playbook, and there's no reason to show that. You're going to see, I think there's wrinkles and elements and mismatches. If you feel that the big play is going to be yards after the catch as opposed to 40 yards in the ground, 40 yards in the air, whatever. I think we're going to have explosive plays.
Oh, we're going to have explosive plays, but vertical passing is probably number 3 on the list. I mean, right. The first thing you want to do, A, run the ball, B, you want to do a intermediate range passing game where you can get yak, because you've got guys that can yak. Especially in guys like CP84 and Bijan Robinson. These are yak guys.
And it's good to have plenty of yak guys. Real quick, I mentioned the tight ends. The name I couldn't find, I just looked it up again. Out of Georgia, John Fitzpatrick. He looks kind of sluggish, and he looks kind of stiff. And all he does is make nice catches and make plays in preseason. So if he can obviously establish himself in a role on special teams, that's another guy. Of all the tight ends we've got, I wouldn't mind seeing make this football team.
All right, I got a question for you. Everything you've seen in the preseason so far, has it altered or changed your opinion just looking at the NFC South, Mike? Has it altered or changed your opinion on Carolina, on the Swampers, or on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
I think it's us and the Saints. I think the Bucs will be better because, but Baker Mayfield is streaky. He can put some good ones together, then the wheels can come off. Still got some weapons at receiver. I think we're better than Carolina. It's going to come down to us and the Swampers, John. That's how we refer to the Saints because they got a better quarterback. That right now is Carr. Whatever you think of Carr, he's more established.
Sure.
Still got Cameron Jordan, but then again, we gutted their defense. We took 2 of their best defensive players,
and
not named Cameron Jordan,
and the guy that they think was, again, their head coach in waiting, and Ryan Nielsen.
Yeah, because for those who don't remember, Onyemata and Caden Ellis, who again he would have led the Falcons in sacks last year with 7 if he was on this roster. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I feel it's us and the Saints. I will say that at the beginning of camp, Carl and I, we always joke around about, we make these bold pronouncements, and Carl would be like, pull, talking about, let's go, get the ball out. Earlier in the camp, I thought there was some hesitancy with Ritter, and I think by the end of camp, and certainly what you saw in the preseason, the ball was coming out. He was making quicker decisions with the ball, and if he didn't see it, he would then take the yardage, especially when linebackers turned their back. He was scrambling and moving the chains. I like that.
Some of the fans have had some not stellar things to say about Taylor Heineke, and I keep saying, look, he's playing with the second unit. He's playing with guys that may not even be on the team. Put him in with the first unit, give him more protection, give him a little bit more time, give him a better running game, and see what he can do. I still think that as a backup, Taylor Heineke is a vast, vast, vast improvement. He's we say what you like about, Matt Schaub, but Matt Schaub as a backup, remember, the only 3 games that Ryan missed. In one of those games, Matt Schaub threw for 400 yards. I mean, Matt Schaub could play. Well, he was starting quarterback here for a reason in Atlanta. And so Taylor Heineke has been a starting quarterback, has that experience, so I have a lot of faith in that. So I'm excited to see what it's going to be when it comes to opening day in terms of the offense. But having said that, when Desmond Ridder says we still have things to clean up, I went, ay.
Well, I mean, yeah, you had penalties. He's talking about penalties. I wouldn't overread anything into that. They had a ton of penalties. And Chris, when's the last time you saw Chris Lynch with 2 penalties in one game?
Especially one that was so bogus it wasn't funny.
Yeah, let alone 2 penalties in one drive.
Right.
That's not what Lindstrom does. Second one was complete nonsense. This hour of a Dukes and Bell Guys brought to you by the Georgia Hemp Company. Pregame tonight at 5:30. By the way, they were going to do an open practice for the fans. That has been canceled this weekend because the heat is just so crazy up there at Flowery Branch. So don't need the fans dropping like flies. So that one is going to be indoors in case you're planning on going up to the branch. Hey, man, Chris is off today. Chris, the engineer, gets a day off. So it's Day-Day's world. And Day-Day. And I said, man, big responsibility. Heavy is the head that wears the crown of Yeah Man, No Man. So we're going to see how his handcrafted Day-Day questions are going to really be on point. Because, I got to be honest. I'm waiting. I don't know. Just like Ritter, I don't know how this is going to turn out. Next on Dukes and Bell.
to more Dukes and Bell. How's everybody feeling?
On Sports Radio 92.9, The Game.
Dukes and Bell, man, high atop Midtown with John Fricky filling in for Carl. Still basking in the warm afterglow of that great Braves broadcast last night on Bally with Smoltz and Glavin and Chipper and Brian McCann in the mix. Also, Fred McGriff came in there. Greg Maddux, just great TV. And Charlie Morton now 18 consecutive scoreless innings in his last 3 starts. Just great stuff. So it looks like Charlie's got things cooking. Well, Braves are off today. Travel day out to the West Coast with the West Coast Swing Giants coming up tomorrow. More on the Braves and some Georgia talk next. But right now, Day gets the big speaking part. Time for some Yeah Man, No Man.
It's time for Yeah Man, No Man. He's the former MVP of his high school football team. Not really. From New Jersey.
The Cavs are here.
And gives rapid fire questions. Here's the executive producer of the Dukes and Bell Show, Chris Thomas.
Again, that's Chris's opening, which replaced Squidbilly's opening, and now it's Day. And just for guys who don't know your backstory, Day, because maybe they haven't heard you night with Chuck Reed, where are you from? Give me some lowdown, man. Give us the bio.
So, I've been in radio for a while, but started with back in the day with 96 Rock back in those days, and then came over here to V103 back in 2004, left in 2013, went with another company up the road, and then came back here right before COVID, right before the shutdown.
Right. And where's home for you, man? Where'd you grow up?
Originally Connecticut, but then I went to high school in California.
Okay, so man, you're well-traveled.
Well-traveled, but I got here in 92 and stayed put. Shout out to Morris Brown College. That's what brought me here, and now I'm here.
Right on. So were you here for all the shenanigans? Okay. Yeah. I got a buddy from New Orleans who's in town this weekend, and he was just talking about my buddy Trusty. He goes, "We're gonna do a little mini freak day." I'm down. And without any further ado, here's Day. What you got for us, man?
All right. So first of all, guys, if I had to ask you, what do you think the sickest day of the year, the day people are mostly calling out for sickness, what would you think it is?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Day after Super Bowl?
Yeah, I was going to say, no, how about January 2nd?
No, it's actually today, August 24th.
Really?
And that's why I believe Chris has bamboozled me. I don't think
this is the day most people take Mondays.
Apparently, and I think this is kind of like post-COVID, I should say.
Okay.
But and then the second sickest day for leave and things of that nature is February 13th.
Around Valentine's Day, maybe you're doing something with your lady friend.
Yeah, I can see that one. But this one is just, it's kind of strange,
random,
right?
Okay, yeah, it's sort of random, yeah.
Now, in the Northeast, schools don't go back until after Labor Day.
Exactly.
So maybe one last weekend here in, obviously, the South, kids are already back in school. That makes I'm trying to get the logic behind it.
Yeah, there is no
And if anybody has the logic, hit us up at Mike Bell ATL.
Hey, by the way, if you called in sick and you're listening to the show, thank you.
Right? Well, Carl didn't call in sick. I mean, as Mitch Evans used to say, vacation days are a right, not the privilege. So, yeah, you got to use them, baby. You got to burn them, man.
Did we just quote Mitch Evans on the show?
That's right. That's right. Thank you, John. And if anyone has seen my orthopedic pillow I left there,
your Mitch Evans runs into a Trump, is what it does.
No, that's completely different. How dare you? How dare you? Hey, man, so what else? That's the 24th.
Yeah,
most sick
August
days ever.
24th.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. We're all former athletes in some form or fashion, whether it be high school. I don't know if either of you guys did collegiate.
Yeah, sure.
And we probably all have that thought sometimes where we can probably still compete.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's an old line. I ain't as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was.
Yeah. Well, Kevin Hart may have thought he was a little better than he really is.
Well, it's going to be bad. Anytime somebody starts off by saying, well, it's bad. Ladies and gentlemen, the age 40 is real. This is just a public service announcement because I know people may see me out, and I don't want you to be alarmed, but I'm in a wheelchair because I tried to jump out there and do some young stuff. Shouts out to Stephen Wiley. I'm going to go to put this story out there before you do. Me and Stephen, we got into a little debate. This debate was based off of who was faster. Those that know me know I'm pretty fast. Stephen said, Kev, ain't no way you're going to beat me. Stephen is an ex-NFL running back, played for the New England Patriots. 40-yard dash. Guys, I blew all my tore my lower abdomen. My abductors are torn. I don't even know what that is, but I tore them. I tore those too. I can't walk.
So Kevin Hart decided to put some money up and race Stephen Ridley in a 40-yard dash. And now he is in a wheelchair with all kinds of injuries.
Dude went to LSU. I mean, there's no way you're beating a guy from LSU. And look, we've seen Kevin Hart. He looks like his pop-up jogging routine. Yeah. He's done that at Piedmont Park where he goes, hey, man, who wants to go running when he's doing films and stuff?
Right.
You get 5,000 people be jogging around with Kevin Hart. Great guy, funny as hell. But yeah, what were you thinking, man? That's just not that horse.
How old is he
ain't
now?
gonna make it.
He's in his 40s.
Right.
So
basically tore everything in his lower body, in his extremities, middle. Okay.
I'll give you, and Dede, as you start to age a little bit, and Mike, as you do as well, and me, of course. Yeah, one of the things true for all you young guys out there, there comes a day when, okay, you say, okay, that's the last time I'll ever play like basketball. Okay, I'm just done. I mean, I can't do it anymore. It's just, it's not happening. And it's a hard day to deal with, because if you've been playing like hoops your whole life, or if you've been running your whole life, it's just, I know. It's just,
it's bad. I couldn't even beat my my 12-year-old in a in one lap around the track in a 400. I quit. I quit at the 300-meter mark. So.
I know there's guys that do like over 40 and over 50 rugby here in town, from High Country and Old White Renegades, all those guys.
Yeah, I get it.
And I did rugby. We had a get together years ago down in West Palm Beach, and so many guys were banged up by like literally 15 minutes in.
Right.
We just stopped it, and we just said, let's just go to
we're done.
Let's go to a bar and just drink.
This is why God created pickleball.
Right. So my right knee is shorter by half an inch. I've broke both collarbones, and
I know.
My knee. I'm waiting for a knee replacement. That's why I'm trying to lose the weight, man. Trying to fight it off.
Wait. Let's do a little thing. All right. So this is what I play right now. I play pickleball. Okay. I play golf.
Right.
I'm not even playing tennis anymore. I'm just playing pickleball and golf. All right. So what do you? I would bowl, but that's another story.
No. It's golf, and I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean,
what else are you doing? Are you still lifting weights and stuff?
Driving fast doesn't count. Auto racing.
No, that doesn't count.
I love auto racing.
No, that's not going to count.
Tell that to my attorney. You ain't lying. But no, that's a great question. Because, I work out. I do it 3 days a week, just trying to keep. My dad always said, keep your chest over your stomach, you'll be fine. And that's my credo. That's it. Golf really is it for me. I mean, when we're on the beach, I love playing volleyball, but that's wear and tear on the knees, man. Yeah.
What about you, Dede? What do you do?
It's just working out. I run 4 miles twice a week and just some lifting, and that's it.
All right,
Giddy up, man. Good for you.
Yeah, I go to the Y and do that kind of stuff too, but I mean, that's about it. I do a little running, jogging. I mean, I guess running is a relative term, right? And, I know that's it, but that's what you do. I mean, just the one thing I wish I would have done more of is what my wife does. Swim.
Yeah,
best exercise in the world.
Oh man, she swims, and it's like, oh, okay. She's still 110 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah, to see you in a Speedo, John. Yep. What's up next, Dede?
All right, one more for you. We know that Shannon Sharp, the big announcement about him heading over to ESPN.
Skip.
Well, he wasn't done with all his big
glasses
announcements.
Off. Okay, make the announcement.
Here's another announcement he had earlier this week.
Do you have good news for me? You're smiling.
I have great news for you. We're in business together, bro. I've decided to bring Club Shay Shay over and partner with you. When we first started, you said, hey, give me an opportunity, hear what everybody else has to say. And I listened to everybody, but I felt the Volume was the best place for me.
So Shannon Sharp joining the Volume Sports with his Club Shay Shay, which really, it took off. And he has everybody on there. He's,
So Stephen A., that thing just never materialized.
No, Stephen A. is going to have,
2 days?
it's going to be 2 days there, and then,
I have a hard time keeping up with all the different, this thing and that. This is a thing. Okay, no, it's not a thing. It's like.
Well, they brought Mad Dog. They brought Mad Dog back, and he's now back in the rotation. So
is he still doing a Sirius channel?
Yeah, I believe he does for baseball.
He does, yeah. So Shannon Sharp, man, he's really kind of starting to roll in when it comes down to doing this media stuff. So.
Shannon's
I just thought, we played
anytime soon.
We played it at length when Skip kind of just took it way too far, made it way too personal, way too silly too.
Yeah.
The idea that Brady's going to play to 45 and you tapped out when. Tom Brady is the ultimate outlier. That's the ultimate. That's the argument that ultimately led to the departure from Fox, of Skip and Shannon. Which, look, I don't watch any of these shows. Maybe it's because I do radio for a living. I don't know. The viewership is still, about the same as like what the nightly news broadcast gets here in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's not much.
It's just
it's pretty low.
It's not a big number, but there are folks out. I guess the same guys who sit on their couch watching Judge Judy, watching that stuff. I guess I don't know.
But
most guys get ready for work.
You go back to ESPN. One of the reasons. When in their heyday, when Dan and Keith left CNN and went over there to do Sports Center, CNN. It was oh my God. CNN yawned. They went, oh, so Dan and Keith are leaving. I'm like, okay. And of course, they made Sports Center what it was, and you had this great audience and stuff like that. And then now they just, I turn on ESPN and I say, who the hell's that? Who the hell's that? I have no idea who these people are.
Right.
I mean, they don't keep people for, a minute or two, and they're putting new people on all the time. Most of them are young, which I understand they can pay them cheap, but most of them, quite frankly, and I'll say this as a TV guy, don't deserve to be on ESPN.
Yeah.
Honestly, guys, just to give you perspective, because, I don't want to, if you're hearing the show and we're not hating on guys, look, I respect everyone's hustle from Jim Rome. That is great. To Cowherd, these guys are making bank, and that's where it's at. So I support everyone's hustle, but just to give you perspective, Channel 2's, news makes about 500,000 people. The best Stephen A broadcast is 337 around the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
So just to give you some perspective of how small the number is.
Yeah, it's a really small number. And so, like the Get Up show doesn't even do that.
Yeah,
right.
Yep. I mean, they get smaller. There are radio shows that get in this country, including here.
Yeah.
They might have a Coom audience that's bigger than that.
Yeah,
But there you go.
Yep. And last thing, guys, just a quick, shout out, R.I.P. Kobe Bryant. Yesterday was his birthday. Today is kind of dubbed Kobe Bryant Day because 8/24.
Right.
Oh, good pull. Yeah. And by the way, Carl,
the two numbers.
That's Carl's favorite guy, and he's got a lot of. Carl, when he passed, I know we were all kind of like thrown for a loop. I mean, I know a lot of guys took it hard. My partner did, and he's a big devotee of Kobe.
Yeah. Well, his wife and the Lakers announced they will do a bronze statue for him at the Crypto.com arena.
Wait. They haven't done one yet?
No, they're going to do one.
I thought the same thing when I saw that this morning.
They haven't done one yet?
Outside of what used to be Staples Center.
Yeah.
Right.
Magic and Kareem are, I think, the only two.
Right. Okay. All right, sure.
I think they should have a giant Jerry Westing, and you pull a string and he goes off. By the way, I know you haven't watched Winning Time. Winning Time is so good. They're kind of.
But I don't need any more Jerry West in my life.
No,
I mean, my God, I had enough Jerry West.
You got to watch with the people. It's fun. Have you watched a minute of Winning Time?
I had enough Jerry West in my life.
But this is done so well. It is such an unbelievable show. And even if you don't give a flip about the NBA, the way it's cast, the way it's written, it's so good. But
All
good
right,
job.
guys, that's it.
Great
man.
job, Day. Great job.
All right, I guess I need to hit my own music.
Yeah, man. Day, filling in for Chris, doing a great job today. Tomorrow we're going to be at Atlanta United's Media Day. Who is going to make it through 100-degree weather when some of the most out-of-shape individuals try to play soccer on half a regulation-sized field? Joe Patrick will be in net, we believe, for much of this. Abe, I know Abe Gore. Abe is, I will say this. Abe ran the Peachtree. Of all the guys that work here, he's pretty good. He's a pretty good athlete, pretty good shape. And believe me, he'll be the first to tell you, but that'll be coming up tomorrow. Hey, man, this hour of Dukes and Bell brought to you by the Georgia Hemp Company. Coming up next, John says, nothing to worry about with the running backs out in Athens. I say, but wait, coming up next. They are playing golf today at Eastlake, and it's the biggest purse in PGA golf, obviously, Tour Championship going down. Andy Rende going to be out there tomorrow. They were out there today. We were out there yesterday, and it looks, I mean, the weather is, there's no rain, but it's like Africa hot, as my buddy would
I'm
say.
going to be out there tomorrow, too, with Sandra, 9 to 11.
Oh, that's right. You're going to be, are you in the Tito's tent, or are you going to be?
No, we're going to be in the Mick Ultra, whatever Mick Ultra
on the front
is.
nine. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, wherever it's located. I
Cool.
have to go out there and find out. But we'll be out there tomorrow, 9 to 11, and then Andy and Randy. So we'll be at the Mick Ultra, not at the Tito's, but at the Mick Ultra setup tomorrow.
Scotty Scheffler making the turn. He's at 12 under. They went to this a couple of years ago where they seeded and it's weighted. So if you're number one in the points, you have already a 10-stroke lead to the rest of the field. The big story, though, is Morikawa is just 2 strokes back, and he started just 1 under. And Colin Morikawa, 2-time a major winner, shooting a 9 under today, 61.
Yeah, he was on fire for Colin Morikawa. And so, one of the things that they always say about this, 10-stroke, 8-stroke, 6-stroke thing is that, they say, I know it seems like, it's an unfair advantage, but then you see Colin Morikawa again. They said, but just wait for the weekend and it'll all kind of work out. Colin Morikawa is 2 strokes off the lead, and he started 9 strokes back. So, I mean, it works out a little bit. Now, granted, if it were a regular tournament, right, he'd be way ahead. But this is the penalty you pay for not playing as well as Scotty Scheffler did during the regular season.
My guy, John Rahm, is 2 under today, so he's at 8 under, 4 strokes back. But most of the dudes that started at 2 are making the turn right now at Eastlake. So, again, if you have tickets, just hydrate yourself. And, of course, I always love when you watch the weather and wear light clothing. I think that's self-explanatory.
Right, exactly.
On that note, let's hit the dog report.
Dukes and Bell on the sidelines with the dogs.
I know we had that story earlier in the week about the guy at the Red Lobster down in the Villages. I guess he would suggest, I'd like to see people wearing those tennis shorts, women in tennis shorts and sundresses. Please, sir, that's totally inappropriate, but light clothing is the way to go. All right, yesterday we were chopping up the story about the dogs and the fact that you lose a guy that was a number 1 running back in the 22 recruiting class, Branson Robinson, season-ending non-contact injury to his patellar tendon. And that's I mean, for me, I was looking forward to seeing this guy in action. You're not as upset about this deal.
Well, I'm not that worried about it. I mean, there's a depth issue here, but, look, Georgia's offensive line is as good as advertised, and they should be as good as advertised. They'll open holes for anybody. I mean, it's not like, oh, my God, we only have 3 running backs. They have 9 running backs, okay?
Right.
And they've got guys down the depth chart like Lynette Whitehead or Cash Jones who are capable of being guys who can bust out and have, I mean, these guys that were highly recruited and highly decorated in high school, they just happen to be, 5th and 6th and 7th on the depth chart. And if they get an opportunity to bust through, you're going to be going, look at Lynette Whitehead go. I mean, the fact of the matter is, offensive line didn't open up a hole, then guess what? It doesn't matter if it's Branson Robinson or Kendall Milton or Cash Jones. They're not going anywhere.
Well, they got the best offensive line in college football, and that's going to be obviously certainly music to Carson Beck's ears if teams feel that there was a deficiency running back. John says, as you know, the recruiting's been unbelievable from Kirby. They got a bunch of dudes. A couple of guys posting some video earlier when I was talking about the running back situation. Dejon Edwards against Auburn last year broke some big runs. He's in a knee brace, and the concern Kirby said is, look, it's not the end of the world. It's just he'll be ready to go. It's a minor injury compared to obviously what Branson's got, which is season ending. Roderick Robinson, he's a big dude. We said that's kind of like the pile driver guy, but. Yeah, John, I understand the depth is there, but still, I think fans were expecting to see, and they were excited about seeing what this guy could do. One area that's not a problem is the secondary. There's an article in Dog Nation about it. Malachi Stark's confident that they're well connected, not just on the football team, because they got vets. Remember Tyke Smith, kid transferred from West Virginia, right? Javon Bullard, Kamari Lassiter. I mean, all these guys are all SEC.
Yeah, I mean, this team is loaded.
Right.
I mean, again, if you don't win the national title, it's not because you got one guy dinged up. I mean, over the course of the year, you're going to get other guys dinged up. I mean, this is just what it is. It's not a one-player dependent team, and it never has been. Now, Stetson Bennett was clutch for them, and without Stetson Bennett, do they win back-to-back national titles? Yeah, maybe not. But I will say that, and while quarterback is important, this team is so good that, again, who's going to beat them in their sky? I could play running back against UT Martin Lawrence and No Football State, and they would win.
You made some bold predictions the last couple of days. One of the things you said, and I thought this was interesting, you were talking about Billy Napier being on the hot seat in Florida.
Well, it's starting to get a little warm down there. Let's see what he does this year.
Well, it's interesting you brought this up because just yesterday, and I just caught this today, there's an article that I didn't get a chance to read yesterday from The Athletic, Stuart Mandel, saying that Billy Napier will be fired by Florida before this season is over.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of consternation down there. Florida, once they got really super good, and they went, it was ebbs and flows. I mean, the Charlie Pell years, and then, of course, the Spurrier years. They ascended all these great heights then with Urban Meyer. And so they touched these great heights, playing for national titles, winning national titles, SEC championships, and so when you do that, then the expectation level goes way through the roof. And there are fans and teams where the expectation, now I'll give you an example, that's Georgia. Now that, Kirby Smart's done this, flash forward 20 years from now, let's say that Kirby's retired and whoever comes back in, you're going to have to reach, it's like nobody can be Bear until, you had the one-off there, I guess, right. And then until still Saban. And there were a lot of guys named Mike coaching out there at Alabama that were no good,
right?
Or having fun with hookers. We're all tied down there with
It's rolling, Mike Price,
exactly.
Very archaic reference.
So down in Florida, they don't have any patience for this. They want to be. They're like, no, this isn't going to work for us.
And that's what Stuart Mandel echoing John's sentiment, saying that SEC programs don't let coaches have two bad seasons. 6-7, the first one. Anthony Richardson decides to go to the NFL because he didn't get his butt kissed enough based on the guys that I talked to, my Gator friend. I actually have friends that are Gator fans. So it's Graham Mertz, transfer from Whiskey. And we'll see. But Stuart Mandel thinks if you go 3-9 and you're 1-7 in the SEC,
yep.
And no one's going to wait for how good your next recruiting class is. Apparently, he's got a good one.
Look at Auburn.
Lined up.
They won a natty, right, with Cam Newton in one of the greatest games I've ever seen a player play in that game against Alabama that Cam Newton played. And how many coaches? That wasn't that long ago. What are we on? 4, 5 head coaches? How many coaches are we on down there?
Well, Auburn, they always eat their own at Auburn. They're always. It's kind of like when the boosters meet at Auburn. It's like it's a firing squad in a circle.
Right.
But no, they did. Remember, it was Gus Malzahn. Well, no. Gus, and Gus Malzahn was the brains of the
Chizik,
operation because Chizik was just, they thought he was a figurehead. So they finally get Gus, give him his crack, and that doesn't fly. The Harsin hire was interesting because it took some balls because you're going way outside the box. And then it blew up in their face. And obviously there was an element of alumni that were
off the field.
Yeah, well,
all the allegations.
There was nothing on. It was BS. It was a smear campaign from my point. The boosters that weren't happy with the hire from the jump. So now you get a guy with SEC ties, and certainly has had his image go through the car wash, so it's Hugh Freeze time. But I think Hugh Freeze, look, one thing you can say about Freeze, he gets the SEC, he gets offensive football.
Coach.
He'll get the most out of what they've got while they're using the transfer portal to build up the rest of recruiting.
Sure, yeah. Well, 12 transfer starters this year. I mean, maybe a little bit rocky for Auburn this year. Some really good moments. And by the end of the season, when those guys come together, they could be a little bit of a, that's the one game that I look on Georgia's schedule and I go, you know what, that Auburn game, yeah, okay. I mean, that's, we'll see what Auburn is by that time. And Peyton Thorne's he can move. I mean, obviously he can run. He can be a bit of a thorn in your side a little bit. How Graham Mertz is going to do at Florida, again, we're taking Big Ten quarterbacks and putting them down here. And sometimes, guys go. And did anybody at Auburn seeing Bo Nix becoming Bo Nix? I mean, do you wish you had Bo Nix now?
Well, it is interesting to see what he's doing against, we presume them to be lesser defenses in the Pac-12. But by the way, they're spending money on his Heisman candidacy. The Phil Knight, Nike money. They've got a high-rise they're wrapping up in Dallas. They're going to do another thing. I remember seeing them do this for Joey Harrington in New York. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Exactly.
The same thing for Achilles Smith. Still to this day, the worst quarterback I've ever seen in person. It was a preseason game at the Georgia Dome with the Bengals. And if you thought Mariota was sailing the ball, dude, you'd need two-step ladders to catch the stuff. That cat was trying.
What did Roger Valdesari was the SID at Notre Dame. He's the one that started all this, one of the great SIDs of all time, because he had a quarterback coming out of his junior year named Joe Theismann, and he said, that doesn't rhyme.
Joe Theismann.
We're going to change your name.
Right.
His name is Joe Theismann.
Joe Theismann from Toms River, New Jersey. Yep. Auburn was at one point against the lesser opponents, pretty good defense last year, and then they started getting to the bulk of the SEC schedule. Mm-hmm. But if worst case scenario, if you had an injury to the offensive line, the running backs aren't hitting on all cylinders, that was a scenario I was pointing out to because it would be the first road game for Carson Beck, and whether they're winning or losing, Jordan Hare is still an electric atmosphere. They've sold out all their season tickets this year out there on the plains.
Yeah, it's a great place.
It's one of those places that can be intimidating. Although, Carson Beck's been in that building, just not as a starter. But that's the one scenario I can say. If all hell breaks loose and now you're down by a score or more.
Right. And, of course, he opens against UMass. It's part of this first, weekend, and then we got week 0. Week 0's got to do better, though, doesn't it? I mean,
that's why it's week 0. It's not the first week.
Yeah, well, but we used to
Navy and Notre Dame.
We used to have the kickoff classic. Remember at the Meadowlands?
Yep.
And you had big teams opening the season.
But that was Labor Day weekend, wasn't
it? Yeah, well, yeah, but I'm just saying you had the big game on national TV to open the season, and now we get Hawaii and Vanderbilt, Notre Dame and Navy, San Jose and USC. What's the over-under on the number of passing yards that Caleb Williams, he's got like 15 receivers out there at USC. I mean, he got Mario Williams, but he's got like 19 other guys. Right. I mean, they'll throw for 600 yards in that game.
I remember the last time I went to, it was 98. Florida State played Texas A&M in the Meadowlands at Giant Stadium. Yeah. And that was R.C. Slocum, still a head coach. That was it that they went on to win the national championship undefeated. But yeah, man, it's week 0. So if you want to watch Caleb Williams and USC, to your point, you want to see what Notre Dame's got up their sleeve. I'm not even betting this weekend. I got to be honest with you. Week 0 is a 0 to me.
Yeah, I know.
It's not compelling.
Give me anything. I mean, something. I mean, but we got nothing.
Well, while you're bringing up the point, and it's funny because Daddy just kind of gave me the look. Let me just hold on. Give me 2 seconds. It won't take long. I'm just looking at some of the numbers. Look at the numbers.
Notre Dame's 21.5.
All right. I'm just looking at USC here. I want to get the USC action.
That was off the board last I checked.
Yeah, Navy, Notre Dame. See, I don't know a thing about Notre Dame other than they've lost their offensive coordinator.
Well, and then they brought in Sam Hartman from Wake Forest.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't touch these games. I don't see. You've got to be a degenerate. I do know that a lot of people love Vanderbilt over Kentucky, over Hawaii.
Was that 17?
It is up to 18 now 18. On some of the books, but that would be one where Vandy's a decent team. I think people don't realize they were like almost a 500 team in the SEC last season. Got some weapons.
And
Hawaii.
And what's funny about that, they lost by a combined score of like 110-3 to Alabama and Georgia. Right. And then they beat some teams. And it was like, okay.
See, this is kind of funny. John's filling in for Carl, but this is a very Carl and Mike conversation. Because here I'm going, I'm not betting anything. And now I'm like,
okay.
Let me take a look at this. USC, Packet Trojans minus 30.5 against San Jose State.
Oh, they'll cover that by halftime.
Right? See, the thing is, now you got to go. Now you got to look at the numbers. You got to do your, as Thomas Dimitroff would say,
but see,
do your research.
But put yourself in the mindset of Lincoln Riley. If everybody doesn't think that we belong in the national title, and it's last year the Pac-12, and we're going into the Big Ten, we can't. They've got to. It's not Georgia can win 34-7. USC's got to win 64-7. They got to get everybody's attention. Hello,
how
you doing?
How many degenerate gamblers are out there? I would actually take the time to look at San Jose State's roster. How many guys are back from last year, and what were they against the spread last year? Mm-hmm. Before I just arbitrarily, USC's going to cream them, which is what Vegas is expecting most people
USC's
to do.
Going to cream them.
There you go. Hey, man, we'll come back with Michael Rothstein from ESPN.com. See what he thinks about the position battles and what should we be looking for tonight. Look out for traffic. Former POTUS said he's going to turn himself in at 7:30. So if you're coming from the south side, you may find an alternate route. I suggest north side.
is the pre-kickoff warm-up. It's a Falcons game day.
Today, it's Falcons Steelers.
Our Falcons play here. Sports Radio 92.9 The Game.
Yeah, buddy, it's a Falcon Friday. Dukes and Bell with John Freaky. He's getting freaky with it. And we're with you till 5:30. And then over at Molly B's, guys, you got Mike Johnson along with Chris Goforth, and they'll do the pregame. And then Wes and Arch will have the call. And just talking to Wes, by the way, about some of the battles at positions. We're going to talk about that right now from ESPN.com. Michael Rothstein, who's been out there since day one of camp, mini camps as well. Hey, right off the jump, Michael, what do you got as far as what's the number one position battle for depth right now in your mind for the Falcons?
Oh, wow. We're starting there. That tells you the importance of tonight's game, right? No,
yes, it does.
I mean, listen, there's a few. I would look at the swing tackle spots, like kind of the third and fourth tackle. Arthur Smith was very open, I guess it was a week and a half ago going into the last game against Cincinnati. That was a huge week for Jalen Mayfield to try and win that job, and he spent all of this week working with the third team, as Josh Miles was the second-team left tackle and Tyler Vrabel, the second-team right tackle. So I think that's a really interesting job situation between those three guys right now for one or maybe two spots. And it's entirely possible, by the way, that third tackle and fourth tackle may be hanging out somewhere else in the NFL right now. Mm-hmm. And we'll find that out. That's something to think of, too, when we're talking about all of these positional battles that we're looking for tonight, as I do not anticipate many, if any, starters playing. The other ones, so maybe some of the depth corner, maybe like that last corner spot. Mm-hmm. Does Darren Hall do enough to hold on to that? The fourth safety spot, to me, it's hard for DeMarco Hellams to not be on the roster with the way he's played in the preseason, but Mike Abernathy continues to run with the twos and is a pretty good player. So does Abernathy do something, or maybe Hellams do something to force them to keep five safeties on that initial 53 because they're worried about losing one of those guys during the waiver process and during kind of cuts? So those are some spots. The fourth, I will give you one that probably a lot of people are not thinking about. The fourth linebacker spot. And I can't believe we're talking about the fourth linebacker spot here on Dukes and Bell, but here we are. The fourth linebacker spot between Tay Davis and Mike Jones Jr. Mike Jones Jr. has kind of made a push here, I would say, in the last week or so to maybe snag a spot on this roster. Tay Davis has run largely with first-team special teams, and that's a pretty good indicator of guys who will end up on the roster in those depth spots. But Mike Jones Jr., when Caden Ellis was not really doing so much and Nate Landman gets hurt during practice, gets hit in the groin, it was Mike Jones Jr. that got some of those reps instead of Tay Davis next to Troy Anderson. Again, because Caden Ellis also wasn't doing a lot at that point in time. So that tells you some of that depth. I mean, that's kind of what you're looking at. Maybe, the fourth or fifth receiver. And really kick returner, I guess, except for the fact that it's probably Cordero Patterson. And if he's not ready, one would think at this point Godwin Igwebuike has probably done enough to be there, because also if Patterson's not ready, then he can become your third running back up on game days along with your kick returner. In a lot of ways, very similar to what Cordero Patterson would be if and when he gets healthy.
What do you think about, we've been discussing over the last couple of days, Michael Rothstein, about the decision about how you didn't play the starters in the opener against Miami, you're not going to play the starters tonight against Pittsburgh, and Desmond Ridder coming out saying, well, I think we're in pretty good shape, but we have some things we want to clean up. I didn't want to hear him say, we have things we want to clean up. If you want to do that, do it now. Are we good going into this opener against Carolina in 2 weeks, that they're going to be okay?
I think they'll be all right. We never really know. Keep in mind, too, part of the equation when we're talking about starters playing or not playing tonight, Drew Dahlman, their starting center, Chris Lindstrom, their starting right guard, and maybe the best player on their team if you talk about talent, pure talent, and certainly paid like it in terms of his position. They did not practice on Tuesday. It sounds like they're dealing with something very, very minor. I don't anticipate this being something that will be an issue or would be an issue if this were week one of the regular season. But they want to be safe and smart with that. So if you're starting center and you're starting right guard, or maybe dealing with something that you don't necessarily want to play them, why would you put in your starting quarterback? Like, what purpose would that serve you? that just seems like that's tempting fate, and the number one thing that you want to do, and the number one thing that any team will tell you if you really put them like attach them to a truth serum type thing is very simple. The most important thing for the players are going to be on your roster in the fall, don't get them hurt in the preseason.
Well, but let me argue the other part of this, Michael, and because we went through this with Coach Bro here. I mean, he put guys in bubble wrap, and then they came out so slow. And even, at times, the game against Philadelphia always comes to mind because he even admitted, Dan Quinn did, that after the game that we were not prepared. I mean, oh, my God. And so he said that. I mean, and we went to, asked Mike. I mean, we all went crazy on that. This start to this season is so critical. You got 4 home games in the first 6. You got to come out. You have to be heading to week 7. You better be 4-2 at the worst. And so, you can't afford to stumble out of the gate here.
No, I agree. No, I don't think they can, especially because you're getting a team starting a rookie quarterback in week 1, a team without a ton in Carolina, a team that doesn't have a ton of bankable offensive players that will be incredibly productive. Miles Sanders is a good player. Adam Thielen was a very, very good player at one time. We'll see what he is now. DJ Shark, apparently, I think he left practice in Carolina. What was it, today, yesterday? So at some point this week, I saw an alert come over that he is dealing with some sort of injury. I don't know the severity of that. So, I would agree with you. Now, Carolina's defense is very good. But I guess I'm not as concerned because also the one drive we did see of the Falcons' starting offense against Cincinnati's defense, the Bengals' defense, pretty good, and they played almost all of their starters. They did on offense. They did on defense. They drove right down the field, and that interception that Desmond Ridder threw was not Desmond Ridder's fault. Like, that was a tip ball situation. Don't exactly know whether Scotty Miller even ran the right route. I am not concerned about their offensive flow at this point. I think by now, in year 3, Arthur Smith has a pretty good handle on this, and I get your point. I understand your point, but every team, this is a long season, and it's kind of like golf. This is how I look at it. The old Masters saying of you can't win the Masters on day 1, but you sure as heck can lose it. Well, if you play your starters too much and a starter gets hurt again, like let's just say Kyle Pitts got hurt again, or Ritter or Drake London. Well, cool for you. Because what did you do right there? You lost your season or part of your season if it's significant before you even got to a game that matters. Like, there's a tough balance. I get that. But if I were a coach, I would always want to err on the side of caution, especially if I like the work that I've gotten and I like the physicality that I've gotten. I can tell you, Arthur Smith really likes the physicality and the work he's gotten from his team so far in this camp.
It is Michael Rothstein, guys, from ESPN. Read him on ESPN.com. Follow him on Twitter as well. Give you updates on the Falcons. We spent the entire offseason on what Desmond Ridder is or isn't. Michael, just from your opinion, I thought the ball was coming out so much quicker and decision-making was happening much faster than it started at the beginning of camp. If you fast forward to what he did against the Bengals, what did you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, some of the same issues are still there, right? Like, he throws a wide-open pass, or he throws a pass, rather, to a wide-open Kyle Pitts. The ball's thrown a little bit behind him instead of in stride. Now, Kyle Pitts caught it, made a really nice catch. If anything, it told you, hey, look, Kyle Pitts might be fine. But you see that, and you say, okay, that's maybe something that you got to keep an eye on. But other than that, I thought Desmond Ridder was very good with his decision-making, and I thought he was making the right reads more often than not. And it's not like he threw the ball completely. I mean, listen, we saw it last year, right? Marcus Mariota sometimes threw the ball, and it wasn't within 5 yards of his guy, and it wasn't a purposeful overthrow. It just didn't come out right. We haven't seen that with Desmond Ridder. Didn't see it against the Bengals. Saw it a little bit early in camp, but not as much, I'd say, in the last week or two being out there. He looks like he's getting into form. Now, I'm not saying he's going to – anyone who tells you, and I think I said this when I was on the show last time too, anyone who tells you they know what Desmond Ridder is going to be this year is lying to you because we don't know. No one can truly know until we actually see it in a game that the win or the loss or the tie, I guess, matters. Like that, we will not know probably, I would guess, for 3 or 4 weeks of what Desmond Ridder really is capable of being. And don't forget, he still only had 4 starts, So this is something that could grow throughout the year, and I anticipate it. I think there's going to be some ups and downs with Desmond Ridder this year. And honestly, if there's not, then that's either a very, very good thing for Atlanta, or at some point this year, Taylor Heineke is going to win that job. And I would probably bet on the first thing versus the second thing.
Well, we always appreciate the input, Michael. Again, it drives everyone crazy. Preseason is, especially for me, as a season ticket holder. I hate paying full freight for this.
Oh, listen, no one is happier that training camp is over than me. No, I take that back. Some of the players might be, but I get it. I'm with everybody else. Let's get the regular season here at this point. The game will happen tonight. We'll see guys. And listen, you're going to see some guys really compete for jobs. But also remember this, and I just want to end on this because I think it's so important. Like, there are going to be between tomorrow, probably not tonight, but between Friday and Tuesday at 4 o'clock, there are going to be people who get cut. And I just want to say this to people as kind of my soapbox thing. Do not celebrate somebody getting cut. Yeah, you might not think he's good at football, but at the end of the day, understand these are guys getting fired from jobs. Right. And just think what it would be like if someone celebrated you being fired. So just have that in the back of your head when you're talking about, not you guys, but I'm saying fans in general, because sometimes I see it all the time on my Twitter account, like, oh, I can't believe, I'm so excited. I'm like, really? Slow down, guys.
Yeah.
Slow down here.
You're right. At the end of the day, that's a dude who's trying to make his way in the NFL. Look, hey, I mock drafted Jalen Mayfield. I thought not to pull him.
I wasn't necessarily referring to him, but he's the one. I mean, but he's getting a lot of vitriol right now. And listen, he's had a tough go of it. Like he was not supposed to be their starter at left guard 2 years ago. That was supposed to be Josh Andrews. Josh Andrews gets hurt it was the day of cuts or the day right after, and Jalen Mayfield has to be thrown into that after practicing at it for all of 2 weeks. He's a tackle coming out. And then last year he dealt with a back injury. It's been a rough deal for him. And if this ends up being kind of the end of the road here, which we don't know, and it could very well keep him, by the way, then I don't know. I kind of feel bad for him because and sometimes that just happens for guys. I've seen it, and it just doesn't get off to a great start, and then it kind of snowballs from there.
Yeah, I think he lost
We'll see what happens.
Michael, I think he lost his confidence, and then from there on, to your point, it was just downhill. And then, he just. But again, as third rounders have got to produce. We've had way too many third-round picks on this team go bust. Appreciate it. Michael Rothstein from ESPN. We'll come back. Guy Talk. Guess who's running his mouth about Georgia's schedule? Urban Meyer. Yeah. How about them apples? And people hate that documentary on Florida. Coming up next.
is the pre-kickoff warm-up. It's a Falcons game day.
Today, it's Falcons Steelers.
Our Falcons play here. Sports Radio 92.9 The Game.
It's time for fun. It's time for guy talk. Never mind. It's time for shenanigans.
Yeah, boy. Brought to you by Dukes of Bell. Hey, man, Ale, get that watermelon lime while you can, man. Taylor, our brewmaster at Coney Brewing's got it on the street. So go get some. If you don't have it at your neighborhood Publix, tell your guy to go get some. All right, we were talking a lot this week about the Swamp Kings documentary, which dropped on Monday on Netflix about the Florida Gators. Many of us who are not Florida Gator fans were saying, okay, here we go. Finally going to demystify all the nonsense about that amazing run. About 5 or 6 years down in Florida where Urban Meyer was certainly the king of college football. We all get the Tim Tebow story, and Tim is what he is, and he's inspirational to many. Mm-hmm. But a lot of folks wanted to hear about Rainey and Demps and Aaron Hernandez and all this stuff, and the 30 arrests and all the shenanigans that were going on, which makes Georgia's situation, aside from the fatality of the car accident, you get Aaron Hernandez involved in like alleged shootings. All that stuff is nowhere to be found in Swamp Kings. It is basically, it's an image makeover for Urban Meyer. It's literally a coach comes from Utah with a plucky group of young underachievers.
I know.
And takes them all the way to the national championship.
Right. I just don't know how you as a producer, in all my years of television, could look at anybody with a straight face after doing that. I just don't know how you do that.
I'm with you. And the woman who was the director on this, I don't know if she's a Florida Gator fan or just decided to bypass that. The way it starts off with there was a player that had some issues off the field. They kick him off the team. He later dies. And he had drug issues. And then Meyer basically uses that individual as the pretext to basically let everyone else get away with murder, literally and figuratively.
Right.
So the reason we were getting into this, unless you're a Gator fan, nobody likes Florida. And it's easy because there's a lot of folks on that team that make it very easy not to like them. But here's something I found just bananas. How about Urban Meyer and what he had to say in an interview when he was promoting this, this documentary? He goes, hey, I think the NCAA should mandate scheduling. When I see the Wolverines and Georgia's preseason schedule, I just think with this 12-team playoff, if I'm the head coach at Ohio State, I could care less about my preseason schedule. The non-league schedule, said Meyer. Why play Notre Dame? Keep playing MAC schools. Well, maybe some young Florida fans out there don't remember, but I used to rail on this on the radio going all back when I worked with David Pollack. Jeremy Foley was the athletic director at Florida.
Yes, he was.
For much of the Gator success. Let me tell you some of the amazing out-of-conference opponents for Urban Meyer's Florida Gators. 2006, Southern Miss, Central Florida, Western Carolina. 07, Western Kentucky, Troy, FAU. 2009, Charleston, Southern that is, Troy, FIU. The only team they played that was even worth the damn, and it was a bad Miami team, a 7-6 Hurricanes along with Hawaii and the Citadel in 2008.
I'm going to make it even worse. I think there was a period of time, and it was some, inordinate period of time, like 20-some-odd years, 30 years, where Florida did not play a non-conference game outside of the state of Florida.
Correct.
They played Miami, they played Florida State, but they did not play a non-conference game outside the state of
But
Florida.
they ducked Miami for much of those 15 years.
I know, and they still didn't play a non-conference game outside the state of Florida. And so, right. And look, you also forgetting that Georgia had Oklahoma on the schedule this year.
Right.
They had Oklahoma. And the SEC said, well, you can't have Oklahoma, so that's gone. And so the SEC took it away, and that's why you have no football state. The fact of the matter remains that Urban Meyer, it's like, dude, you don't even know what you're talking about, and maybe, you should just kind of go away.
Yeah, and guys always go, what's your mean on with Urban Meyer? Look, if you're going to start talking about your faith-based coaching, and that's a big part, Pope Urban and all that, then you got to walk the walk. And he never did that. And again, whether you got an assistant coach you're aware was using his wife as a punching bag, which eventually led to his dismissal at Ohio State.
Well, then he goes down to Jacksonville. He leaves the team behind, stays back at a bar. He's got what was her name? Something, Carlton, Nebraska. Remember the hottie blonde that was like leaning up to him in the bar that he's doing the grind with, and that's on top of the fact that he bought his kind of racist, equipment guy with him, down to Jacksonville. God.
He got fired. That's true. I think he was a strength and conditioning coach. Yeah.
Right. That's what he was. Yeah. Okay.
But Jeremy Foley was the AD for over 14 years at Florida, and he was the guy that scheduled this. And Urban Meyer didn't seem to have a problem with a dog blank schedule when he was competing for natties with the Gators.
I'm going to guess that Ohio State's schedule there wasn't exactly world beater.
Well, I will say about Urban, he makes it, if you don't follow, and I know we live in a world today where some people just don't follow the drift, he's a fraud. He's a phony. and he should be exposed for what he is. And we thought we were going to get that in Swamp Kings. Not the case.
Not the case.
Hey, man, a story today dropped that Steven Strasburg is going to retire. Strasburg, for those who don't remember, was the next big thing in Major League Baseball, a total phenom for the Nationals. And Strasburg, by the way, has had nothing but arm struggles now, what seems like ever since, and even before the World Series.
Has pitched 10 games the last 3 years.
Right.
And he's not a kid anymore. He's probably getting towards his late 30s. I mean,
right.
So, he started baseball probably in 2008, 2009 when he came out of San Diego State.
He is, I'm trying to get the date on this.
36,
He's 35. But here's the rub on the Nationals. Right. We've talked about, big crazy contracts and numbers. They're on the hook for $105 million. Strasburg is set to make $35 million next year. They're already paying him this year, and then the next 2. Now, they did win a World Series with Strasburg. So, you could argue at the end of the day, you did get that. But this dude has just been, one arm injury after the next. So they're shutting him down, and now he's shutting down his career.
By the way, your guys Rory McIlroy and John Rahm are not doing too well today.
Yeah, we're watching Eastlake today. Tour Championship. The heat is insane. Scotty Scheffler had the advantage of being the number 1 seed, so we began the competition at 10 under. So he's at 11 under, but Colin Morikawa, he's the dude that started at 1 under based on the FedEx points. He's 9 under today, shot a 61. Keegan Bradley, another country heard from, he's just a stroke back, John. He shot a 63 today.
I know, right? Hey, speaking of the heat, I'm sure that these guys are thrilled with the heat in Atlanta. Nothing we can do about that. This is God, not us. And I would say that's not what they're worried about. The most annoying fan in golf is the dude that yells, mashed potatoes. You know that dude?
Oh, yeah.
Or in the hole, that dude that you can hear on the broadcast at times.
Oh, yeah.
The golfers aren't even annoyed by that anymore. Now you know what they're annoyed by, and they're really mad, is these people, and they're trying to ban
the gambling talk?
Yeah. Live betting on the course, because guys will get out there and live bet, that, okay, we're watching Scotty Scheffler here. Scotty will, will he make this birdie putt, 1-to-1, $10, and then so he'll be yelling right before the putt, miss it, like, a Caddyshack or something,
Well, guys like that should be punched in the head. That's, there's certain things, anybody who's had the privilege to be at the Masters, you so much as sneeze and like 50 people turn their head at you.
Right.
But nowadays, and I thought, the crowd out in L.A. for the U.S. Open at the L.A. Country Club that nobody liked was the same thing. First, not to mention, let's be honest, you got, Tad and Biff have had their 57, whatever, Heinekens, and so they're just blazzo. So I'm with you. There's nothing worse than, hey! Actually, well, you know what? Come to think of it, there was a rain delay once at Augusta, and my buddy Davis and his family, they live close to the Masters. So during the rain delay, we went over to his house, had a few martinis, and then they announced that play was going to resume at 5. And so we came back. And the players were walking across the course to get in position. And we're over there by 16, which is the most perfect vantage point of the Masters. You can see the tee shot approach on 15, obviously over the water, the tee shot on 17, the green at 15, I should say. So we're walking back, and here comes Retief Goosen with a couple of security guys. And, of course, I'm hammered. Here's straight, Retief. And he looks at me, and he goes, that's the general idea, my friend. So I'm like, I'm sorry, I've had too many martinis.
Yeah.
I'm going to shut up now. Hey, man, there's your guy talk. We'll come back. Falcons, you're not going to see the starters, but there are some battles we're going to talk about. And in a way, our own Joe Patrick, Smokin' Joe, asked Arthur Smith a question today, and I think Arthur gave a pretty good answer for Falcon fans like John and I, and maybe you, who feel you just didn't see enough of Desmond Ridder, the starters. We'll get into all that. A reminder, guys, the Prez is coming to town. Not under the circumstances anyone envisioned a couple of years ago. So if you're down by Fulton County, Popo, you might want to give yourself some extra time. Prez is going to turn himself in at 7:30, so that'll definitely mitigate some traffic issues, or it's good. They'll try to mitigate some of the traffic issues if you're coming from the south side specifically. This hour of the show, guys, is brought to you by Mark Spain Real Estate. Hey, we'll come back. Falcon Report on Dukes and Bell with John Fricky.
It's 5 o'clock.
It's 5 o'clock on the most listened to sports talk show for your ride home.
What?
It is time for the Falcons Report.
Guns it. Caught. Touchdown Atlanta in the end zone. Caught. Touchdown. You shall not pass.
The 5 o'clock Falcons Report.
Oh, my heavens.
On Dukes and Bell.
We are Dukes and Bell on a Falcon Thursday, guys. Plenty to talk about. Tomorrow, Rob Tribble and I are going to be up at Atlanta United for the media tournament. How many guys are going to drop dead from the media? Let's hope not many. It's maybe there'll be like water hydration breaks every 5 minutes. Don't need that. The roof's going to be closed, I would imagine, tonight because it is hot down there at Mercedes-Benz. Real quick, we start the 5 o'clock hour. John in for Carl with a big, hey man. Good job by Day Today. He's engineering, producing, doing a whole shebang.
He's running it by himself.
This dude, he's a one-man gang. Hey, hats off to Arch. We were talking earlier with Michael Rothstein. I know I mentioned it a few times this week, talking about the one toss that might have been considered a bad throw by Desmond Ridder was the one that was behind Kyle Pitts. Arch hits me up on the text because we like to say, Carl and I on the show, Archer always watching, judging, listening. Sam Hubbard, the DE, tipped it, and that's why the ball was thrown a little bit behind Pitts. I didn't even argue on the radio about the interception because I thought the receiver was mugged and there was no call. The refs were they were in preseason form on some of that drive.
That'd be interesting to see if they have a better game tonight.
The second Lindstrom holding penalty was ridiculous.
Of course.
So we would have been first and goal, but ifs and buts, we don't get the touchdown. Here's an interesting thing, John, because you and I spent much of the show, much of the week, talking about the sample size. Have you seen enough of Desmond Ridder? Seen enough of the starters? Joe Patrick talking to Coach earlier today, Arthur Smith. Arthur asked about, if a preseason game rep is more valuable than a training camp rep. Quote, certainly guys that don't have a lot of snaps in the NFL, there's more value in a preseason game. It's a subjective argument because you could make the argument that if a guy is going against a player that's probably not going to be there on Sunday, in other words, a second or third string player who may get cut, if you're going against a guy that you know is a Grady Jarrett, how do you measure that up? There's a lot of context. We evaluate them all. So the idea is, on a daily basis, you're maybe going up against better quality than what you would see these guys going up against in an exhibition game.
Just because the starters aren't going to play tonight doesn't mean that this isn't important. It's important not only from a sense of cutting down Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening. This coming Tuesday is the deadline to get down to the 53-man. And, of course, your practice squad and things of that nature. And, to give guys an opportunity to be picked up by other teams, all that kind of stuff that's in play here. But for the Atlanta Falcons, for their success this season, there are a couple of things that are true. One is the depth of this team has to be a deciding factor, not an important thing, a deciding factor when it comes to their ability to make a playoff run or win the NFC South. Second part of this is you want to see some of these depth guys not only become depth guys, but become first stringers. In other words, you want Arnold Ebiketie to take a spot, to take that step. You want Richie Grant to take that step. You bring in a Jeff Okudah, but if he loses his job, and of course he's been dinged, but if he loses his job in the course of the season to somebody who plays better, not because he plays poorly, but somebody who simply plays better than him, that's all of the kind of good stuff you want to see. The guys you see tonight are going to be really important to this team. Again, it's not just an importance. This is critical to the success of this club.
The thing about the depth, when you finally get some money to spend, we've improved the depth where there's actually, think about it, John. I remember going to camp. Carl and I joked around about this. We were talking to Coach about who was going to win the battle between Wes Schweitzer and whoever. The talent was so bad, I don't remember who the other guy was. But and Dan Quinn would always be like, well, iron sharpening iron, and you knew that it was not a good battle. You didn't have depth. You didn't have quality. Now you've got legitimate pieces. So I understand we may go and shop for another offensive lineman to be a swing guy because you lose Hennessy, and I don't know if Mayfield's going to make the cut, but that may be one area maybe we want to beef up. But everywhere else, like, for instance, the corners. This year, man, with the defensive backs, Okudah goes down. We got quality at corner.
Mm-hmm.
Clark Phillips has looked good. We've got a ton of guys that are repping it. Safeties, you got depth. Wide receivers, I know we've got guys that are making plays all preseason long that somebody's going to get cut. Hopefully we can retain them on the practice squad and other teams don't get their hands on them. But it's just more depth. Last time I saw this much depth, it was the last year we competed, which was 17.
Well, and guys that are dinged up, and guys get dinged up over the course of the NFL season. Obviously, it's a war of attrition, right? And this is why depth is so important because, at some point you end up playing Christian McCaffrey quarterback. That's just the way it is. The NFL is that way, and the 49ers have had their injury issues over the last couple of seasons really bad, probably more than any other team in the NFL. The Falcons are going to have to still make some decisions. For example, if CP84 is not going to be able to return kicks, are you good with Godwin Igwebuike returning kicks. Also, with Avery Williams out for the year, are you good? Are you 100 that D. Alford can be your guy? Or are you going to be looking at somebody else who might be cut from another team, for example, Mike? Who,
I think
because field position and punt returning, you can't underplay it.
No, and Cordell Patterson's not going to be gone for the whole season, but I mean, we got a couple of dudes that certainly have answered the bell in the running back battle. I know we talked about. I'll start with, and I always butcher the name, but the young player from. Go ahead, you're going to say it. You know what I'm talking about, Day. Igwebuike. Damn it!
Igwebuike.
I've screwed that thing up 7 ways to Sunday.
Because his cousin, he's like 24. His cousin's 62. His cousin was the kicker on that Clemson national title team that I saw in the Orange Bowl with Danny Ford, and I don't want to remember.
Because Avery Williams got hurt, and then Patterson's banged up. But Igwebuike, damn it!
Igwebuike.
That's $10 I'm up to. Him has been really good, and he's shown out certainly in the Dolphins game. Kind of opened a lot of folks' eyes in that first preseason matchup. But yeah, as far as the corners. There's some competition there. I know that I think A.J. Terrell, when Okudah does finally get 100%, you've got guys that are ball hawks. You mentioned D. Alford. We've already talked about the job Clark Phillips has done in a small sample size. And that's also drafting well. The one area that I was really excited about was, is Ebiketie going to take the leap?
Right.
How does Richie Grant fit in? And we're still kind of figuring that one out. But Ebiketie's looked great at camp. And that's a guy, second-round picks can't be busts. I know we're talking about Jalen Mayfield. That's probably going south for him, but you can't.
Well, he had that spin move. He had, he continues to increase his arsenal. Look, I go back to the.
But second rounders have been too many second rounders going back to the Dimitrov have been train wrecks. Maybe we're fixing that now,
and that would be a good thing. I mean, if you look at the impact that Dwight Freeney had on that locker room and on the players, because it's great to have a coach who can kind of walk you through things, but sometimes that mentorship. If you're a young player, if you're a Vic Beasley back then, if you're a Grady Jarrett, if that Dwight Freeney really means a lot. And this is what Calais Campbell's not just going to give you. We need Calais Campbell. Look, if he plays, 40% of the time or whatever, however they're going to work it out here, he's also going to help these guys. Bringing these veterans in, you would think would increase the growth of not only Arnold Ebiketie, but when he gets back, maybe Adio Gadeji, because we don't know still what we're going to get from him, and D'Angelo Malone, and you see guys you see flashes of, but Caden Ellis helps a Troy Anderson, and Okudah helps a Hall or even an A.J. Terrell, so.
The other aspect tonight, guys, it's the Falcon Report here on Dukes and Bell, is the quarterbacks. The emergency quarterback, is Logan Whiteside going to do such a job that maybe he gets picked up on the roster on Sundays? I mean, I think if you put him on practice squad, somebody maybe swoops him up. He's looked pretty good. He did have a drive to get the tie.
Do you know
in the Bengals game?
I think that's a good point. I don't know if the emergency quarterback is going to be a practice squad guy or not.
Yep, we'll find out. But Logan Whiteside's a guy that you'll see a lot of tonight. You will see a lot of the Steelers. We spoke earlier this week with a beat reporter from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and apparently you're going to see, at least they were reported to as of yesterday, Mike Tomlin was going to go with the starters. That means Kenny Pickett. You're going to see George Pickens. So if you're a Steeler fan and brought your terrible towel, you may get to see some plays being made because you, sir, are going up against our twos.
Yeah, that may not be a pretty game in that regard.
Also, guys, the traffic, and we just talked about it earlier, coming from the South Side. President announced earlier on his social media that he is a former president going to turn himself in at 7:30. Fulton County Jail, if you're coming from the South Side, don't know what exactly the state police have planned as far as rolling roadblocks, but you might want to think about maybe taking the back way in to Mercedes-Benz. Also, the benefit of, let's be honest, this being preseason, not exactly expecting a big crowd.
No, it's not going to be, 30,000 or so?
Well, I mean, with the PSLs, technically it would be a sellout.
I'm talking about
real bodies in the stand. That'll be interesting to see. Hey, man, this is the 5 o'clock hour, brought to you by our buddies at the Man Cave. Thank you, Day. Man, Carl makes us look easy sometimes. Hey, guys, if you're ready to get your Man Cave up, this hour is brought to you by the Man Cave Store. Up your Man Cave game this football season with a new custom pool table, theater seats, or even a shuffleboard table. For family, friends, and fun, visit mancavestore.com. All right, man, we got one last segment to have fun. I will say this, and I mentioned this earlier, didn't have time for it in Guy Talk. Great job by the Bravos last night. Gretchen, the executive producer, Bally Sports. So much fun. I got to play the Smoltz cut when they were busting his chops about when he got hit a couple years ago. The video production, the elements, the conversation was great. And more importantly, John, Charlie Morton is really on track. we'll get into what the Braves are doing and the big matchup. I know that John and I are looking forward to. Got to wait till Labor Day for it. But if the Braves already proven they're out of the woods with the pitching, coming at bottom of the hour pregame, Chris Goforth, Mike Johnson, they're going to be at Molly B's Mercedes-Benz.
Our Falcons play here.
And we're getting you ready for today's game with Falcons Game Day.
Today, it's Falcons Steelers.
Our Falcons play here. Sports Radio 92.9 The Game.
The Strong Arm Story of the Day is brought to you by John Foyt Associates Personal Injury Law.
Yeah, buddy, getting you ready for the Falcons, Maine. And as we said, go say hi to Mike Johnson from the morning shift and Chris Goforth. They're hanging out at Molly B's just off of Times Square when you walk in the main drag at Mercedes-Benz. And I think folks will be looking for those position battles, John, we talked about. But hadn't had a chance to talk about the Bravos for the last hour. So let's switch over there, man. About as good as Charlie Morton has looked as a Brave.
Yeah,
in the regular season.
No, he's looked really good. And this is where we go back to the pitching has been really good. Look at it. Go over the last month here. And what are they? They're 21-13, I think, since the All-Star break, which isn't bad, by the way. One of the better records in baseball. It hasn't been great. But it's their hitting that actually has not really they've had a couple of big games at the plate, but for the most part, their hitting has been kind of all right. It's because Olsen isn't really doing much of anything right now, and Riley, and again, I'll say it, I think they miss Ozzie Albies. So I can't wait to see. I hope he's back in the lineup, possibly even maybe as early as tomorrow in San Francisco. So,
right.
He makes this trip. The pitching actually has been really good. They have had one of the better pitching runs here of any team in Major League Baseball over the last couple of weeks.
By the way, it'll be Spencer Strider versus Logan Webb in San Francisco coming up tomorrow night. And then Saturday, it's Max Fried going up against a Spanish player, Undecided. Also known as Undecided. Yeah, man, and hopefully Fried, because Fried we played that soundbite earlier in the week where Fried sounded like he's still working on some stuff and working through some things.
Let me ask you this. Am I wrong in thinking that healthy, right? Mm-hmm. That if Fried is healthy and you got Strider, who I still think should be higher in the, not third, but first in the Cy Young. You got Morton pitching at this level now. You got Bryce Elder, and you get, what you get with Bryce. And if Kyle Wright, who's making a start tonight, by the way, if you're in the Rome area, Kyle Wright's pitching, or at least scheduled to pitch tonight for the Rome, they used to be the Braves.
They are still the Braves, will soon be something else.
Yeah, it should be, they're changing their name. Anyway. He's pitching at I used to call it State Mutual Stadium, whatever the stadium is there. Oh, no. He's pitching tonight for Rome, and we think 4 to 5 starts, I think. And, he'll probably pitch a couple of times in Rome, may get to Gwinnett, that kind of thing. If Kyle Wright shows promise, you're looking at about 3 weeks. And so if you go into the postseason and you hold a spot for Kyle Wright on your postseason roster, presuming that you do, and you look at it and say, you got Fried, you got Strider, you got Morton, you got Elder, and possibly Wright. Are you good and comfortable with the fact that the Braves are going to go into that postseason with those guys as your starting? I mean, is that your rotation in some form?
Want a little more help for the bullpen, but if Wright looks good tonight, and they've got their own timeline for him, but if he can get a couple of starts in September and then roll in, see, that's the big if. No guarantee how they're going to handle him, and he'll be able to just hit the ground running. You're hoping that. But the way Morton is Morton had a bit of a wobble, but it's a long season, as a lot of Braves fans like to point out. Charlie looks great. If Fried can work on whatever needs to work on, Strider just coming off a one-hitter, so I think Strider is certainly is stout. Iglesias, we can bellyache about blown saves, but when you look at what Kenley Jansen did or Will Smith did 2 years back, right? Raisel Iglesias is better than both of them.
Yeah,
percentage-wise. So
I agree.
You're feeling a little bit better. Minter's back. You get Dylan Lee. I know some Braves fans are saying, what was your beef? I just wanted you to stack the deck so I wasn't worried about Kyle Wright. Because remember, after the All-Star break, Bryce Elder kind of wobbled a little bit too.
Sure.
But seems like he's gotten some confidence. He looked fantastic last couple of outings. And as we know, the lineup, Ozuna, unbelievable last night. The big fly. Matt Olson was struggling, and then he had like a mini streak, or mini slump, I should say, going 1 for 1 hit in 5 games. He goes for a 2 for 4 performance last night. So hopefully that's more of that.
See him put the ball in the bat. Don't strike out. I mean, because when he puts the ball in play, good things tend to happen.
Right.
I mean, he mishits balls for home runs.
It's true. Well, nowadays too, these guys just I'm not saying the ball is juice. They were talking about some of that last night. Hey, real quick, I wanted to play it, John, before we get to clearing our throat. If you missed it on Bally Sports, Glavine, Smoltz, Chipper, Frenchie, McCann's jumped in for a couple of innings. It was great. You had Maddox on the split screen with the crime dog. It was the most fun TV, ball busting. Pete Alonso got plunked unintentionally by Elder earlier in the week in the back. They found some old footage of Smoltz getting plunked in Colorado and going down like he got shot. And just listen to what it sounded like when they broke it down.
Last back here, John Smoltz. Oh,
kidney boys.
Does rain in the kidney. Does the tuna. So this is what the tuna looks like.
There was no tuna. It was just
around on the ground.
Having a hard time breathing at this point.
And look at Bubba out there. Just What a little freeze.
Everything they found an old copy of the legendary or infamous The Natural Sports Illustrated cover with Jeff Francoeur. And then there was, I think it was an Atlanta magazine or Jezebel or something.
With him hot.
He's wearing the goofiest outfit.
It looked bad.
But it was great. They had a Peter Moylan photo of him when he shaved his head to look like Smoltz when he was with the Braves. So much fun. The time with McCann, I mean, I wish they could do it every night. As John said, probably cost prohibitive. But I mean, it's so. If you were a Braves fan last night, I mean, I was rewinding to catch some of the jokes and the references. The Gwinnett home run race for, for Frenchie. Great television, man. Great job. Hats off to Bally Sports. I know they mentioned Gretchen, the executive producer, many times. Just a lot of fun. So again, off night for the Bravos, and then in San Francisco tomorrow. Rob Tribble and I will be over at Atlanta United. It is the media day, which means the media game. So it's Abe, who's in fighting shape, Joe Patrick. I believe Bunker's going to be at Eastlake, so we miss out on Bunk playing no defense as he did last time in the media game, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks to our guest, by the way, today. We did speak to Michael Rothstein from ESPN, who joined us. And thanks to you, brother, for putting up with me for a couple of days.
No, it's been fun.
Hey, man, let's clear our throats.
Dukes and Bell are wrapping up another show, so it's time for Let Me Clear My Throat on Sports Radio 92.9. The Game.
All right, if you're going to be watching this game tonight, I got to tell you, depth is a critical factor. It is, matter of fact, probably the most important factor in the success of the Atlanta Falcons this year. So don't dismiss, the starters aren't playing. You got to see these guys. They're going to have to step up. They're going to have to play like starters against the Pittsburgh Steelers starting offense especially.
John brought this story up earlier. We were doing the dog report, and I know most dog fans or SEC fans listening really probably don't give a flip about LSU, other than Bo Johnson, our engineer. Right. But this is one that just drives me crazy about the NC2A. I mean, they're this close to being irrelevant. To sit there and drop a one-game suspension on Mason Smith, All-American defensive lineman for LSU, that would obviously be a guy they're going to need against the Seminoles. Obviously, it's not selective enforcement. You can't have him play against Prairie View or something. He's got to play in the first game of the year, or not play in the first game of the year. He made some money signing autographs, very similar to what Todd Gurley got in trouble for a couple years ago, which by today's standards, NIL, guys are making money hand over fist, guys are making six figures. It just seems so petty from the NCAA. And if I'm the big boys of college football, just further proof to create our own super league. Let the NCAA have March Madness, and they can run the sports that only family and friends watch. But let's have our own league with our own officiating and our rules, and put the NCAA to bed when it comes to football. How do you like that?
No, I totally agree. I mean, because it is, at this point, it is blanket immunity for everybody that did anything before the NIL.
I'm with you, man. It's like giving away speeding tickets to the Indy 500. Love the show?
Tell your friends.
If you don't,
well, we got Day to sick on you.
Falcons next.
The following is a presentation of Odyssey Sports.